And so we have to know how to look at ancestral consciousness and intelligence and pour the highest level and say, we've already done good enough.
Yes.
Society today is the most insecure it has ever been in eternity. So the things that we're doing are not from a place of healthy habits. They're from a place of trauma, insecurity, and fear and perversion. So you're not doing the healthy, highest level version of it.
The 19 keys. The 19 keys.
I appreciate my pops for teaching me how to be a god.
From a boy to a man, and ultimately back into the natural state of being into a God.
As gods, we're supposed to always move with that higher self. I had to be able to execute it. Having knowledge is not power. The execution of knowledge is power.
Knowledge makes a man unfit to be a slave.
Because the only real knowledge you can get is knowledge of self.
This is the highest level. The highest level is ownership. The highest level is power. The highest level is sovereignty. The highest level is higher consciousness. The highest level is when we own our own culture.
Excellence at a very high level. Appreciate it. Not eye level. A high like that.
It's time for a high level conversation.
We're here for another high level conversation.
19 keys, and this is
High level conversation.
tap in with the God.
Peace Family is 19 Keys with another episode of High Level Conversations. Today on High Level Conversations, as all days, we have very powerful, special people. This brother in particular, you probably have actually been affected by his works and his wisdom and his pilgrimage that he has been set on throughout his life. He is known as the father of the Ankh, the first initiated Kemetic priest in New York. He has made his life in duty to his beliefs, in duty to our ancestors. And in the rhythm of that, he's actually built institutions and foundations, bringing the ancient symbols to modern man. Most people walk around with the symbols of the Ankh, but they don't actually know the history of bringing their symbols to America and how it become more established. The good brother that is on today, I believe, is one of the ancestors who represent that tree of life, right? This tree of wisdom and this tree of knowledge that must be documented. There is a lot of TikTok knowledge and script scholars who can read some information and then spew it for a minute and sound intelligent, but it's completely different when you actually dive into it. It's different when you can defend it. It's different when you actually know it. And that is taking you through the phases of initiation. This is a man who has not only been in the police force, but had to leave that force because they didn't believe in the forces that he believed in. He went from carrying a gun to carrying an op. And these are two different levels of peace. You know, one is the weapon of the West, you understand me? And the other is the weapon of peace. And so now this brother today that I have, this special master that he is going to enlighten us on some of the ancient Kemetic practices. That's right, I didn't say ancient Egypt, I said ancient Kemetic practices. Enlighten us, what do the symbols actually mean? What do the metanetra, what we know as the hieroglyphs, actually mean? And so today I am honored to be here with this brother because this is where I get all my jewelry from. So he keeps me dripped up, right? I'm here in New York in his studio where he has what he calls the joyerie, right? The joy to bring joy. So I want to thank the good brother Baba Haru for being here today, and we're going to learn some very powerful, key, and valuable lessons. My good brother, how we feeling today?
Anasharak Nebet Neb Nebercher Kemam Nebu Neteru. I say praises to the divine, who is the Lady Lord of the ultimate limits. And I give thanks to be here to greet my beloved brothers and sisters out there in Netherland. Yes, indeed. The divine land. Yes, sir.
So today I want to jump right into it, man. Every time I get here, I'm excited. The energy in the shop is always high vibrational, right? And every time I come here, you give me some Kemetic wisdom, right? But I want to really dive into what is Kemetic wisdom, what is Kemetic teachings, what is Kemetic principles.
Okay. The most important aspect of the Kemetic reclamation and resurrection is our claim to the spiritual culture of MAAT. MAAT meaning justice, balance, order, truth, reciprocity, sobriety, propriety, harmony. All of those principles that I just spoke about in English represents that ancient spiritual high culture of the Nile Valley Africans. And I need to say, before I go any further, though Kemet is the original name for the land now miscalled Egypt, the fact is that it's the northeastern section of a double queen kingdom known as Smai-Tarwi. Smai-Tarwi means unity of the two regions. The Egyptologists like to say the two lands, but it's more than the two lands. That's a geographical designation. It refers also, Smai-Tarwi refers also to the spirit and matter. Smai-Tarwi represents the upper and lower, your right and left brain hemispheres, which many of us have been trained to stay out of the right brain, because that's usually operated on the left side of the body. And they consider, the Western man considered the left side to be the sinister side. And which is unfortunate, because that's the divine feminine within all of us.
Right.
You see, we are all what you would call of these two regions. You know, both intellect and intuition. And the intuition resides, the divine mother throne is on the right side of our brain, and the divine father is on the left side. So he governs intellect and she governs intuition. We have also the marriage of the sun and the moon. Again, which is very prominent in Islam, you know, the star and the crescent.
Correct.
You see, so I am always into the cosmic designation of things. So that's what I love about our different divine culture.
Yeah, you know, when you really get into study, you find correlations in between all religions in the world and
Yes.
all spiritual groups, right? And, you know, there's a saying Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, settle on the best part, right? And people ask me a lot, like, or you always ask me as well, you know, how is it that you have interest in all of these other areas, being that you're a Muslim? And I believe that one's belief system or way of life is not a limiting thing, right? If anything, it should be a guidance to understanding all of the world, right? And so for me, living a way of life or studying a practice of a way of life and getting master teachers from a master teacher gives you a third eye, gives you a view lens where now you have a North Star, you have a compass to where you can go in. And what I see in this generation a lot of times is we pick up the diverse interpretations of everything in the world, right? Some people want to be a Buddhist, you want to be a spiritual person, you want to be Kemetic, you want to be Muslim, you want to be everything, right? Without mastering anything, right? And so it's like a person with 1,000 destinations. They don't know where to actually go, right? So you need to know where you are to know where you're going, right? You need to know where you came from, right? And so for me, it's about giving direction, right? A generation that I feel is lost in trying to find themselves in every text, in every tweet, in every TikTok, in every Instagram or YouTube. No, we have to first build foundation, right? And from that foundation of principles and true understanding, then that can give you guidance, right?
No doubt.
Now, the history of the Ankh, right? We see the Ankh everywhere. Like Lord London, she had it in the movie You People, right? We see everybody's wearing Ankhs of all different, you know, lifestyles, ways of life, but most people couldn't tell you what the Ankh actually means.
That's true.
So, you know, from the Baba of the Ankh, can we get your history? First of all, how did you begin to take on the Ankh and bringing it to North America, right? What's your history and connection to it?
Oh boy, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Well, to begin with, my beloved father, James Wilkinson Hjorhes, or Georges as known in English, he was the one who said to me, he was a Christian minister, with the Apostolic Faith Church, and of course I spent most of my childhood in the church, 3 days a week. But my father would say to me when I would go to his tailor shop after work, after school, to do the buttonholes and the overcasting of the inseams of trousers, he would say, "You know, son, I'm in this house of my brother Shem, but I'm really from the house of Ham." That's how he was taught in the Bible. And he said, we need to study, because if the Bible says, honor your mother and your father, that your days may be long on the earth, I need to study Ham. He said, you know, you look like that little boy they call King Tut. My father, he was a teenager when they found the resting place of Aten Ra, Tutank. That's the way his name was actually spelled. As a matter of fact, that's the way he was born, with Aten Ra, which means the sun, Tut, the image of Ankh, the image of life itself. That's what his name represents. Later, of course, he changed his name to Amen Tutank to honor the hidden aspect of the spirit. So we have Aten Ra, which is the revealed light of our present day sun, and then we have the Amen, which is the hidden aspect. Ra itself is the hidden sun, the sun behind our sun that we see in the sky every day. So as I began to study more, and he told me specifically to study about this little boy who was crowned king at the age of 9, and of course expired around the age of 18 or 19. They said
19.
Yes, they said he may have fallen off a chariot or some palace intrigue that he may have been murdered. But he said I should study as much as I can about him, and it would lead me to discover the beauty of this ancient culture. And he was very insistent about that, because he had joined the Marcus Garvey movement in San Pedro de Macorís in the Caribbean island of Dominican Republic. And he said to me that I should study as much as I can, and that's what I have done. And it stayed with me as I grew up. And finally, I met a man while pounding the beat in East New York. I used to stop into the store, Juan Vega's store, jewelry store, and I used to tell Juan how I want to learn how to trabajo en la plata, how to work silver. He said, "Oh, you come here one Saturday and I will introduce you to the man." And I walked in one day, and there this gentleman walked in. He was about 52 years old, Anacleto Santiago de Colon, and he introduced himself. He said, "Ah, Jimmy, you want to learn the joyeria?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, I have a house in Williamsburg. You come down there and I will teach you whatever you want to know." He used to work in the jewelry center of 47th Street here in New York, where you have the largest jewelry district. And but he had a full shop in his basement, and I would go there. And for 1 year, I was his apprentice. But he would not let me do anything. He said, "Just watch me, take notes." It wasn't until he had quit his job, and one Friday, and he was going to come in that Monday, because we had found a space. And he said, "Oh, by the way," he says, "you want to be my partner?" I said, "You think I'm qualified enough?" He says, "I think so, and I will show you even more." So we found a place over in the Bowery, and we started. That weekend, on that Sunday, he left his job that Friday, and that Monday he was going to come in full time. And he said to me, he said, "We're going to do very well." He said, "Because I see you have good hands," because he brought me the tools by which I could sculpt in miniature. And so I said, "Fine." And that Sunday, I got a call from his beloved queen, his beloved wife. Anacleto se murió, that he had died. He had a heart condition. And he kept telling me, he said, "I don't have time for you to do anything. Just listen and watch everything I do." And it wasn't until I came back from the interment, his funeral, that I casted my very first piece. I was sculpting a lion's buckle. And when I put it in the oven after the wax melted away, because we were using the lost wax process, which you can Google that, what the lost wax process is. That's how a lot of the jewelry is made today. And it was amazing how, when I saw the ears of the lion coming out of the investment, I said, oh my God, I can do this. And I dropped to my knees and I thanked his spirit for giving me these tools by which I could use to help to awaken my people. Because I realized that in addition to knowing about the history, I had to produce something from the inspiration of this history. And because of the fact that I noticed that people were wearing different emblems, and my family would say, "You have to give the people what they want." I said, "Well, I think I'm going to give them what they need. If it kills me, if I go broke, so be it. But I'm going to give them what they need. They need emblems of our culture, because we need to walk around and be teachers. Each one teach one,
That's a fact.
as Alma John would say. She was the first registered nurse in Harlem Hospital, and she received an Ankh, by the way. And so it was my duty to bring this key forth, because I noticed on the temple walls that our ancestors were always carrying this key, holding it by the feminine principle here. All the kings, the queens, and all the nobles were carrying the Ankh. And so I said, well, I think it's time we start to carry it again. And so, of course, at the time I was a police officer, and now I don't like to say police officer because that brings a memory of the slave catchers.
Yeah.
I prefer to see myself as a peace officer.
Yeah.
Because that's what I did. I brought the peace to the beat, and I love to walk the beat, to talk to the people. And I got some pushback for that because I spent too much time talking to the people.
Right.
I said, well, if you're going to...
And you was wearing your Ankh?
Over my handcuff case.
So you was wearing your Ankh, and they didn't like that, or did they care?
No, I was psychologically tested.
How so?
Well, because I kept on wearing it because they said it was not part of the uniform.
Right.
And I said, well, so they had me go down to for a psychological test. And when I walked in, I threw the Ankh on top of the table. I think it chipped the surgeon's table. And he says, what's that? I said, oh, that's why I'm here, because I carry this. He said, can I touch it? He picked it up from the table. I said, of course, go ahead. He said, you did this? I said, yes, sir. Oh, that explains it. You're an artist, and everybody knows artists are different. He says, get out of here. He says, now I have to have whoever sent you down here to be brought down here to be tested, because they should know there's an artist, you are going to express yourself in a free way. And that's how I was able to then carry it. Of course, I did not make a big deal of quote, disobeying the command of my superior officers, but the fact is that I still carried this Ankh because I felt a balance, life, and I got the instrument of death, which I never used in all the 20 years I was on there. I don't like guns at all, but I know that that's how some people are rolling these days, so I prefer to carry this key.
And that's powerful of a story. First of all, just in the sense that when we see the symbols out today, the knowledge that's out here today, you know, the information, there's a backstory to how it got here. And there was somebody who had to push and persevere, in order to deliver this information, right? Like, you know, I'm well aware of the ability now to wear the crown, but there's a, you know, long history before 19 keys, right? Like, so people outwardly wear the Ankh and there's no pushback, there's no issue now. But when it was people like yourself in the 60s, when you was wearing the Ankh, that symbol had not been known and it was foreign to the mind, right? And, you know, anything that was, you know, not traditional, you know, Catholicism or Christianity, right, was always opposed. And so I find that interesting because a lot of people don't know to recognize our elders for the privileges that we have today, which some people, you know, may take for granted because you don't think about like, damn, I get to wear my symbol, but you know, who wore it first, right? What did they go through to where I can now be comfortable and it's normalized, right? And so as we talk about this key, you know, what does the Ankh mean?
Well, to make it quite short, it's just a word in the Metunether, now known as hieroglyphics. It's a word for life because it honors first the divine feminine principle. It honors the divine children, the divine father, you see. In our culture, Nut, heaven, is feminine. Geb, earth, is masculine. And the children, holy daughter or son is the product of that comes out of the womb through the seed of the father. Now there's many different interpretations because as many of our people confront this divine key, their ancestral memory kicks in. So they have different definitions of what
Ancestral
this
memory.
yes,
What's
hereditary
ancestral
memory.
memory?
It's
And by your, I know my understanding of it, but by your definition of, just the term ancestral memory, where people like, because symbols are very powerful. I just talked
True.
about this, episode with Joey Badass, because he had some symbols, and I wear my symbols. But like I said, symbols create a feeling in the subconscious, an inner knowing. It can, create a enlightenment in the mind just by seeing certain symbols and having a connection between what's in your DNA. And you may not know it, but you intuitively and instinctively have an understanding built into your genes.
That's right.
And so that's powerful. When we look at that symbol today, many people take it and establish to their own meaning. And symbols have the ability to be connected to whoever has it, their feelings. But then there's a root, right? And I know you are a person that just doesn't give anybody the Ankh, right?
right.
You want people that actually know how to defend it, that know the understanding and that have knowledge of it.
Right.
But today we have a lot of symbols without substance, meaning people carry these names, people carry symbols, people carry claims, but they don't actually have an ability to back it up with any true understanding.
That's
right?
so true.
But why is it so important for a person to have understanding, right? When we adapt all of the knowledges of the world onto ourselves as if they're just brands like Gucci.
Well, you see, this divine key has met a lot of opposition in the beginning because Hollywood has spooked people about anything Egyptian. And I say Egyptian in quotes because that is not the name of the place. Pushing the concept of linguistic sovereignty, we want to call things by their true name. When I first went to Kemet, I looked for the name Egypt spelled out in the glyphs up and down the Nile, and you will never find it on any stela, on any monument. No, it does not exist. That word does not exist in its English pronunciation. The Greeks, when they came there, they came into a city called Het Ptah Ka, House of the Soul of Ptah, which was the temple that resided in the city of Mennefer, later called by the Greeks Memphis. And in Het Ptah Ka, the early ancestors always, that was one of the largest cities and the oldest cities in the land of Smai Tawi, the northeastern section of Kemet. And it was there that we discover the very foundation of our own creation story. The king Shabaka of the 25th dynasty, he wrote a description of the oldest creation story that goes back to the Old Kingdom, and
Shabaka stone, right?
The Shabaka stone, precisely. By the way, that beautiful book written by our beloved brother who was on your
Kamane.
Yes, right. Our brother Kemetic, he wrote the book Shabaka's Stone, where he explains that that is the oldest story of our Genesis of the beginning of creation. And it speaks about how creation came into being. And it's a wonderful document, and I would suggest that people become more acquainted with what our ancient ancestors in the Nile Valley had to say about creation. Because long before any of the religions existed, the spiritual culture of Kemet, of the Nile Valley, existed. And it was from that template that most of the religions got what they got today. The whole concept of a divine trinity,
right,
goes back thousands of years. And by the way,
what was the original divine trinity?
Okay, well, there was a cosmic trinity known as Geb, the earth, known as Nut, the heavens, and known as Shu, the atmosphere. All right? And then from there, we have the earth expression of those cosmic forces known as Ast, who they now call Isis in the Greek vernacular, Assar, who they now call Osiris, and Haru, the one they call Horus. And this template was the basic Trinitarian concept that existed for thousands of years to the ancestors of the Nile Valley Africans. And I need to say, following this concept of linguistic sovereignty, we call the continent Africa. Af in our legacy, or Afu, means the flesh. Ra, the hidden sun. And Ka, the soul or the spirit. Though we the flesh and spirit of the hidden sun, Ra. So if you're African, you are claiming something larger than even the continent itself. You're claiming a cosmic designation, because even as our brother Neil deGrasse Tyson said, that we are really made of stardust.
Right.
And it's something that we should not take lightly.
Right.
Because that means that we are eternal. Because what we have to measure the quantum field of your breath, because at one day the seed that made me was breathed in from the cosmos by my father, went directly to his sperm pocket. The same thing happened with my mother. She breathed in that essence one day and it went to her egg. And here we are in the material manifestation.
Right. You know, I think that's a very great point that you bring up, just an idea of material manifestation. But the immaterial manifestation is something I like to think about a lot, right? Because we talk about Ka, right? And Ka or Ki or Chi, right? And we talk about it now as energy or vibes, right? So this generation is a generation that goes off energy and vibes a lot. But they're talking about Ka and Ki, right? This is what they're expressing, but the language has changed.
Yes.
But it always comes back because the power of us as human beings, right? It's the being part, but us being, gathered from the universe and made from these cosmic ingredients, we have some powers, all right? And one of those powers is our vibratory senses. Yes. I talked about it with Kamane about, our ability to have multiple senses way beyond 5 senses, right? And so intuition is a sense, but when you walk into a room and the energy is not correct, because human beings emit light, right? That's a sense that because you can't see with your eye, you may not think is there, right? And so for me, it's about, and this is like me kind of like figuring out like what is the best thing for this generation as far as their guidance, right? And I don't think everybody has an ability to understand the hidden hand, right? Reality, there's a lot of hidden hands. Psychologically, a lot of people think they're free today, right? But they're not, right? Not only do they have the whispering in their own mind of that devil they have to conquer, but then it's the devil that knows how to conquer the mind, right? Psychologists like Barney, back in the day, they figured out how to get women to smoke cigarettes, right? Because at first it was just a man thing. And so what they knew was they had to play on the psychology of women, of the want to be rebellious or the want to be free, right? And so he staged protests where women were pulling out cigarettes, and this got the masses to start desire products that they didn't need, right? Yes, and so a lot of people today walking around believing that the things that they're doing is, because we won't have more freedom or we have this, that, and third. No, it's because you're being manipulated and controlled because you don't really understand the hidden hand and the unseen forces.
True.
Right? And so when they manifest within you, you think that that's you and your desires. No, that's the ones that's been supplanted into you, right? And it's not until you rise above, right, and you tap into that crown, then that's when you can live above the human desires of the world. And it's more so about understanding that there are, scientists, neuroscientists, people in their fields to control human behavior, right? And, they do it through the power of suggestion and symbols. And they can connect desires to symbols and suggestions, and these become products, these become habits, these become lifestyles. Which also become diseases, right? The overconsumption of meat and foods may help increase someone's bottom line, but if you don't have the knowledge of understanding the hidden hands and hidden forces in the world, you can be controlled by these symbols and suggestions and, these campaigns that they push out there. But this is the power that the ancient Kemetic people understood. They understood the power of symbols, but they have symbols of life. right?
True.
And a lot of symbols that we have today are symbols of death, right? And
Yes,
so we're
indeed.
surrounded by a world that is, more so ruled by, nefarious forces who take the knowledge of the ancients, but they use it for, greedy purposes.
No doubt. You see, that's part of what they call the great brainwashing. But I think that's an erroneous term, because to wash something is to clean it.
Right.
We have been brain stained
Brain stain.
and brain dirtied.
Yeah.
And so the only way to wash the stains away is to wash our brains with our ancestral legacy. Our ancestors went to a great length to chisel their truth into stone and on an eternal papyrus. And that papyri has been gathered by Westerners in all of their museums. Okay, the stones they couldn't carry, not all of them, even though we have one, the Tekken, symbolizing the reproductive power of the African male and the female. Because the tip of the pyramidion of the Tekken, now called obelisk, represents the divine feminine principle, the Tepit Hemet. And the shaft itself represents that of the divine masculine, which we call the henanum, not penis, by the way.
Yeah, when I recently took a trip, out to Egypt, and I was able to visit the tombs, right? I was able to go all throughout it. And there's an energy that you feel, right?
No doubt.
That's really inexplicable, right? I had some even powerful emotional moments when I went into the pyramid that, when I stopped and I just meditated, the energy resonated. But I think for me, what I appreciate the most about, the ancient Kemetic people and the Egyptian legacies is the amount of things that they have that represent unity, right? And unification, right? And you can't go into any society and build anything until the culture is right, right? And this is where we have an issue as a people because we haven't figured out our culture problem, right? And so they had a culture of unification, whether they had a lot of words and a lot of terms towards it, right?
Yes,
they had
indeed.
symbols that represented unity,
That's
right?
right.
Handshakes that represented unity. There was so much around it. So it was in the fabric of their culture was unification, whether it was the lower Egypt, right, with the upper Egypt, whether, it was symbolizing the crowns that was worn, right? And so if we actually, let me ask you, more so as a thought experiment, if you will, what symbols and what things that we can embed in our culture that is similar like the ancient Kemetic people that you think can enhance us to that golden goal that we have, which is unifying, because we know that that's our power.
Well, the concept of unity was actually the name of the nation. I think I mentioned that before. It was called SMI, are we, Unity of the Two Regions. And it's very important that we call the nation by its true name, because we're talking about the unification, the political or geographical unification of Kenset, known as Nubia today, of Kush, now called Ethiopia in the Greek vernacular, or Abyssinia in the Roman, and of Kemet. Okay, these three regions, because you see, we have to erase these Berlin Conference lines of modern day so-called African nations. Those are abominations that has caused a lot of blood to flow, where families were split apart, and some were shoved over here, some were shoved over there, and this disunity took place, and we still suffer from that disunity today. Nowadays, we are finding that same type of disunity existing between folks who are born here in America and folks who, let's say, come from the Caribbean. And in both hemispheres, they both have attitudes, thinking that, well, I'm better than you, I speak different from you. I remember when I first came to America, I was speaking King's English. I had that very, very clip British accent because I went to British school in the island of Tortola. But I also knew how to talk the island talk, with that broad talk type of thing. And where we're not being too proper in the pronunciation of words. And that got me a lot of pushback, because they would say when I spoke, King's English, oh, you're talking white. But when I went to talk the island talk, oh, you're a coconut. So between being white and being a coconut, talking white and having a coconut language, I had a difficult time getting in until I read about Sidney Poitier, the problems that he had being born in the Bahamas. When he came to America, he was speaking in that island accent too. So what he did, he began to look at the newscasters because everybody could understand the newscaster. So he figured if he copied the newscaster's speech, that he would get over.
That's smart.
So I did the same thing. And it created still a problem for me because I was still talking white.
Right. You know, it's interesting for me, communication, right? Utilizing that throat chakra, that power. That's something that I'm always advancing and getting better at.
Yes.
Right? Because it's a journey, because when you speak into so many different people in different styles and different places, you know, communication is about getting someone to understand, right, you and anything that you put out there. So, you know, but when I think about language, and specifically melanated people who come from cultural places, it's kind of like if you give me your dish, I want to put my spices on it, right? So for us, language is like when we have these, you know, curvatures in the language where we use our slangs and we create our words, that's us throwing our spice on it so that we can actually enjoy it. Right? True. It's like you can give me the clothes, but I'm going to fashion it my way, because language doesn't have to be directly by the book to be understood. You can say things in different tones and give one word 5 meanings. So language is this thing that's really formless that you can shape, right? As long as a person has the, you know, the key, right? Which is, what's that? The, like the Rosetta Stone. If they know the language itself, then they can understand the context in which you're speaking.
Yes, right.
Right?
When you learn how to use your mind, that's when you start to operate into the divine. You start to tap into your God power. That's when you operate and learning how to take your thoughts and form them into reality. That's when you pull things from the darkness and you bring it into light, into reality. And that's when you have the power to change the world, and you can bring wealth into generations, into your family. There's power that's going on, why don't you go grab it? There's crowns out there, why don't you put your on? There's a lot of fear in front of you, why don't you knock it down and slap the devil and tell him it's your time? What we waiting for? I'm ready to go to the highest level. If you're ready to come rock with us, if you're ready to build with us, because we're not waiting on nobody. Once we get on the mission, we in motion and we devote it, we give liberation to our people. Our freedom ain't talking about the identity that's connected to the evils that the agenda gives you. No, we're talking about actually knowing that you God and standing tall and speaking truth to power against all odds. They look at me and say, how's you a black man? How you walk, how you talk, how you dress, how you move, how you smooth? Why you know yourself so much? Why you so damn cool? Why you got confidence? Because I decided that I would never live at the lowest level. That's the sun. I decided I would be a God. Every single day I got windows and I got train. They don't like when we grow. They don't like when we talk well. They don't like when we talk economic power. They don't like when we know ourselves. They don't like when we spread the truth. They don't like when we make more leaders. They don't like when we take it from the lowest level to the highest level. That's what we owe. Ha! 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 Ha!
We're going to the highest level. Make sure y'all come with us.
The highest level tour is, you know, it's a moment in history that we get to think about and relish in and be a part of. This is me proving my thought leadership. This is me implementing the ideas and reinvigorating the spirit that we're going to need to win the future right now.
Speaking of context, I had this thought, right? Because we was talking about, you know, the society we in now is very androgynous, right? And the brothers, somebody was telling me, you know, and you was around in the time of the 60s, right? So you can speak to this a little more. You a fly brother. I seen the pictures on the wall, man. Your drip was immaculate, you know, similar to myself. You know, I'm in my decadence right now, out here looking like the Raw General.
Not with that crown, bro.
Yeah, you feel me? But the conversation was about androgynous behavior today. And most people always talk about, hey, that's not an effeminization. That's what we did in Africa, or they wore skirts in Scotland. And I said, wait a minute, they didn't call them skirts in Scotland. See, language and context is very important, right? I've never heard an African brother say, you know, we wore dresses in where I'm from. Why? Mm-hmm. Because the men didn't call them dresses, right? Right. And Kemet, they were, you know, you got thobes, You got different robes that you wear, but it also fits the region and the context of that culture, right? So one would be masculine and one would be feminine based on the context of that culture. There was always a differentiation with the garments that we wore that was in line with our nature. And in this, we try to, it's a bit of deception and technology because we justify anything that we do, right? Well, we just start pulling stuff from the world. And I'm like, that has nothing to do with what you're doing though, because that's a completely different context, psychology, culture, and fashion and style. And so it's like, as I see you wear, your garments, right? And, I'm gonna wear my decadence. In the 60s, that was an era of, people started putting on the dashikis. It was becoming more Afrocentric, especially out here in New York. And it was a more militant time where it was socially charged and people were, politicizing the movement, going against the man and the government, and drugs was in the streets and people was trying to get the heroin out the streets. So there was a time of like unification. There was festivals that was happening. So it was a high time of being black and being proud to be black and proud. And then you had the wave of the 70s, right? The 70s come and it's more of a psychedelic era of experimentation and European fashion, right? And then that's when you got pimping, right? That explodes and the pimps become symbols of masculinity, right? So a lot of people will point back to, well, look at the 70s on how they dress. Well, do you really want to go point back to a time where we started to decrease our militancy, decrease our unification, and start going to more European fashion, more pimping, which is degradation, right? And we started to lose ourselves. Because when we was going towards more Afrocentric, that was when we were gaining ourselves. That was when we was reaching back and saying that, no, I want to represent the motherland. So I think we got a generation, because we got so much access to information, we are a confused generation, because the clothing companies, the fashion companies, they want men to wear purses because you go buy more purses. Kind of like Edward Barnett with getting women to smoke, which it was just a man's thing at first. Now purses are so-called a man thing. So not only you buying one for your girl, you buying one for yourself. And your girl, she buying one for herself too. So now that increases spending habits and capitalism, right? But I just wanted to get your take on, right, number one, the androgyny of culture, right? Because you talk about masculine and feminine principles within a man and woman, and I believe that wholeheartedly, of course, right? For me, that feminine side is the side of expression, right? The arts, the craft. But at the same time, it can go overt and it can be used against you.
True.
Right? And so you don't know where your nature begins and where it really ends and where you're manipulated at, right? What did you see in the 60s as far as, the fashion trends and how they changed?
Well, let's get back to, let's say, the garments that the Scottish people wear. They call them the kilts. We known in the Kemetic, we wore this it looked like a skirt. That's what we call it today. But our ancestors called it the aper. Aper, which is give us the word apron. Aper give us the word apparel. Okay, but we call it aper, and it was in keeping with our ancient culture.
Right.
Because don't forget, it was very warm. Right. On the continent. So
they ain't had baby powder back then,
which is poisonous, by the way. Some of it is, and so as we now seek to reclaim aspects of our culture, it may look strange to some people. Well, why is he wearing a skirt? It's because we have the wrong terminology.
Right.
You see, English is a spell casting language because it's made from different components, where you can say one thing and mean another, And so the time has come for us to begin to focus on saying what we mean, and we must have the courage, instead of surrendering to the brain stain of what we were given and educated in, we should rebel and bring forth some of our own words instead of just going along to get along. Like we have these political terms that are so dangerous to both our existence as a people and to the existence of those who oppose us as a people. Because, and I please, my beloved brothers and sisters, do not take me wrong when I'm saying what I'm going to say.
Speak.
But those terms, black and white, when referring to human beings, are both wrong. They are lies, first of all. They are politically charged lies. And I'll tell you why. When you go into the dictionary and you see how the word black is described, you go
You
to
mean
the
in the
dictionary.
Black's Law Dictionary?
Well, not even that, because it has no standing in law, as they say. So we have placed ourselves outside of the law. And it only describes that the melanic principle that we're made of, the carbon in our very DNA, that's what it describes. But the word itself is problematic. And people say, well, why do people all over the world hate black people? I don't believe that people all over the world hate people who call themselves black, but because foreigners learn English from the dictionary. The dictionary becomes their Bible. So when you see the description of words in that book, especially Webster's, I say it stirs us in a web of lies, it tends to go, it causes people to go against the very word. So therefore, because we identify with that word, they go against us. Because if you pick up your phone and look, there are about 25 to 30 definitions of the word black in terms of the way it's used. Okay? Meanwhile, those who oppose us, who call themselves white, the descriptions of that word is glowing. It's so beautiful, and everyone wants to identify with that. And that's why if our sisters choose to shift the color of or the texture of their hair, oh, you're wearing a white hair. No, well, the Aborigines in Australia or dark-skinned people have some of the same type of straight hair. You see, because Africa produces all different types, all complexions, all sizes, all heights, is produced by that mother continent. So when we speak of androgyny, we must remember that you have to go to the zodiac of Dendera, the temple of Dendera, and you will see that for this age, which they call Aquarius, this is the age of we call Hapi. And Hapi is also the name of the two Niles, the Blue Nile coming out of Lake Tana, the Iteru Kepset, and the White Nile coming out of Nyanza Victoria in Somalia, Kenya, and Uganda regions. This is the Iteru Hedge, or the White Nile. And these two rivers are shown as pictured on the temple walls as two men with pendulous breasts and with a pregnant belly. That goes to show that is the inundation of the river. And the fact that the men have breasts, pendulous breasts, indicate that the Nile River delivers the food that nourishes you. But you see, that kind of understanding is something that we have lost. So when we look at this, we say, oh, these guys must have been gay. Well, those same two symbols of Hapi, the twin Niles, is what we use for this age that we call Aquarius, is known as the age of Hapi. And you will see the same configuration on the walls of these men with the pendulous breasts. So, but the fact is, it's telling the truth, because all of us are androgynous. The whole humanity, human beings are androgynous. However, if you come in a male body, you're given male instruments for your sexual expression, and the same for the feminine. All right? Now, the problem comes when you try to shift. Now, let's understand this, and this is where we get into a lot of trouble with our brothers and sisters in the LGBT community, because we fail to realize that everything is born out of the cosmos. And there are some people who come on earth in that way, with that kind of expression. And that's something very difficult for people of African descent to understand. So what are we going to do with these people? Persecute them? Kill them? We see too much violence against people who have this confusion, which much of it is brought about by some of our churches, unfortunately, Some of it has been brought about by the confusion, by what happens in some of our homes because of some of the terrible things we've learned on those plantations, okay, where that behavior was sent down. It's almost in some of the genetic memory of the abuse that we suffered. And therefore, we see young people who are molested before they're in their adolescence will in turn be molesting others even before they grow up. So this thing spreads, and now because of a certain agenda to keep certain populations down and to raise other populations up, they are putting it in the soil now. So the very foods that you're eating are being neutered and neutralized. Okay? You're eating grapes with no seeds. Oh, seeds are an inconvenience. You have to spit them out. Oh, you should be planting them, right? However, this is a problem, and then we end up really beating up on people and killing people because of this confusion brought about by some of the society's behavior. Okay? And the sad thing is that it has become a war now. And we are seeing that people who are having this kind of expression and are looking for people to recognize their humanity are being murdered. And that is wrong. Okay? To kill anyone because you don't know how this person, what their experience has been. And when some of them tell you that this is how I've always been, we forget the law of spirit. That spirit chooses to express itself in ways that we may not comprehend, because spirit has a veil of hiddenness. And that's why the spiritual life is one of discovery. It's not one of imposed belief. Because belief is temporary until knowledge comes. The Bible said, my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge.
That's correct.
It didn't say for the lack of belief, because we have much belief. But true knowledge is something you've got to search for. It's like, and belief can sometimes be an addiction. You tell the one who smokes cigarettes. I just heard of a family member who lost all her fingertips because of cigarette smoke. And she believes that she could not do without that cigarette. And therefore, her lungs spotted with cigarette, with nicotine.
Right.
Because of belief. The same for alcohol. You see?
You spoke a lot about a lot of different things. So I want to dial back a little bit.
Good.
So it'll be a little hard for me to go back because that was a nice monologue. So there's a few different things I want to talk about. First of all, the word black, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I was taught, as Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, that black is the essence of colors. It's not a color. It's the essence in which colors come from.
True.
Right? And Kemet, meaning the black land or the land of blacks. So is it improper for people to associate the word black, even though we can actually find where, peoples have used the word black to describe melanated peoples? Right? Mm-hmm. Now, today we have, the textbook definition, the law, because we're dealing with commerce, we're dealing with law structures. And so, which are two different things, because before these dictionaries were written, the word was still used, but the connotation was not connected to it and its attachment. So the negative aspects that people read and know about the word black today was not described in ancient times. So some people, it's like when a person picks up the word niggas and they said, well, we can say nigga because in niggas in Ethiopia, it meant kings, right? So some people would say, well, black in Egypt, that was a representation of Kemet, right? The land of blacks. Or some people would say that can also describe those people in that region, but you can also find in different places where people were described by their description. Or brown, right? Because of brown people, I'm copper color right here. You feel me? Mm-hmm. So I'm a copper color man if we going by accurate description.
True.
But and I can understand why the word black has, and why my brothers say that, the legal description, like in the Black's Law Dictionary, does not define a people who have a nationality or have rights within the land, right? But then we look at the Jews, and they were able to get, They recognized as a religion, from a nationality to a religion, like being Jewish was recognized from a religion to a nationality, rather, right? And I was thinking, like, if they can get, this recognized as a religion, I mean, as a nationality, why can't black people get that recognized as a nationality and change the books?
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because the question becomes for me is, a word is a word, right? We can stop using a word. I'm fine with that. I'm not attached and emotionally charged to words like that. The question becomes is, what's more efficient, right? What's the easiest process to do to get black people to stop calling themselves black, right? Or for us to change the definition and connection and connotation to it. But when we talk about, like, let's say reparations, and we say, well, we're going to give black people reparations, there's no specificity of who gets that until you go look at, like, what Tariq Nasheed breaks down with African descendants of slaves, which is then saying that, no, we're talking about American, right? Native American people, or, and by Native American, I'm talking about what's known as black people. You feel me? And we're saying that this is the way for us to identify them in America. Because when we say black, that's the Caribbeans, that's my African brothers, that's any immigrant that comes over. So how do you know who to give reparations from? Yes, you have to have an identity so that you can even direct these reparations to the right people in the first place. So in that regard, I can understand, because that goes towards process, right? But as I was asking before, when we talk about Kemet, what does Kemet mean?
Okay.
In reference?
I'm a musician. I had a
sir.
band in the 80s, and I still play my guitar every so often when I get a chance. I'm very much into sound and the power of sound to create certain spells. When I say come, and I've lectured in halls filled with hundreds of people, and I would say the word come, come, come. And I say, now say the word black, black, black. And I say, which one gives you more resonance? Where do you feel it? Everyone says, come. You can feel it when you say the vibration comes in here.
What if you say like black? No, you still can't do it. I tried.
You see, because as again, it's about
Blood.
it's about resonance. It's about the musical sound of things. Like they say in the beginning was the word. I beg to differ. In the beginning there was a sound, because the metuneter
Frequency.
and frequency. The metuneter, now called hieroglyphics, was actually more sung than spoken. Because, and we as a people, we like to sing, don't we? We love that musical sound. And and please understand, I understand the use of that word black in our present day usage. I'm not trying to say we must cancel it. No, it has a great use because of where we are. But when you come into establishing linguistic sovereignty, we are charged with infusing our ancient ancestral terms and sounds into this language, because Western man has brought Roman or Latin and Greek terminologies into our use. So what's wrong with us planting the same seeds in this consciousness of our children and giving them terms that we may use, among ourselves if we find that I'm not against the present use of these terms at all. But at the same time, my brother, just like in symbols, and you spoke about this before, do you think that if we were wearing ankhs and knew what it meant, that it would be that easy for us to be killing each other on the street corners? I'm asking you that question. Do you think that if we were wearing ankhs as a symbol of our reverence for life, which is what it represents, that we would be killing each other? But notice...
No, even if we was wearing crowns, hell no.
Okay, precisely. But look, because of the fact that we are wearing a symbol of death, those young men who go on the hip-hop award ceremonies, all of them is wearing a symbol of death. the symbol of a crucifixion of a good prophet. And but in their pockets, they have the instrument of death that this nation relies upon. They are worshiping a gun, all right? And that gun and the symbol they're wearing makes it fine to do what they do to each other on the street corners of the cities.
Crucify each other.
Precisely. We are crossing each other's lives out, and I need to say this to my brothers out there on the street corners. When you hurt another brother, you are disrespecting the mother. And we come from a matrilineal and matrifocal culture where the mother does matter. And the fact is, when you kill your brother, you are harming his mother. And I say this to those 5 police officers who did that to that brother in Menefer, now called Memphis in the Greek vernacular. And that particularly bothered me very deeply, because these men, many of them were initiates in Greek fraternities. And these fraternal orders have the elementary knowledge of Kemetic sacred science. I said elementary knowledge because the Greeks only got the elementary education at the Ankhs that they captured, because the priests were not going to give them the deeper secrets. So they're using shallow information. And that's the reason why people who took my course, Kemetics 101, when they joined various fraternities and sororities, they had knowledge that surpassed the very system that they were being initiated into.
You know what? You bring up an interesting thought process, because there are Muslims, Christians, Catholics, people of all religious backgrounds join Greek fraternities.
Yes.
And for various reasons, a lot of positive and good reasons. But then I think about that. Like, why isn't it a Kemetic fraternity?
Well,
right? Not just in question form, but just in the thought process. Like, if we take, you got the Greek symbols, which to us is not empowering symbols whatsoever, because I don't feel any ancestral connection to Greek symbols, right? When I see them, they don't activate nothing in my DNA when I see a Greek symbol. But if we were to imagine, and this is just sort of like a thought experiment, like imagine if, though, instead of just having Greek fraternities, there are some Kemetic fraternities, or fraternities that are in representation of, I don't know, an OMAC fraternity. Like, why don't we have any other type fraternal orders to where we actually have symbols that's connected to us, that are actually connected to principles that are ancestral consciousness, right, practice as well. So for me, when I think about those things, right, it's okay for a Muslim to be in a Greek fraternity or a Christian to be in a Greek fraternity, but why not an African one?
all right. Well, I tell you, I'm ahead of you right there.
Come on, talk to me, man.
Because in the 80s,
Yeah.
I worked with 4 brothers from Brooklyn College. And there we established a fraternity, a Kemetic fraternity, and a Kemetic sorority, where the very name was in the Metuneter, the so-called hieroglyphic language. It was called Haru Neset Ra.
Haru Neset Ra.
Yeah, which means Haru on the throne of Ra. And then there was Haru Neset Ast for the sororities, okay, which means that Herut Neset Ast, that the female principle of Heru is on the throne of Set. Ast is our divine mother. She represents the maternal principle in our legacy, like Assar represents the divine father. But the spiritual aspect of Assar is Ra. So that's why we called it Haru Neset Ra. And there's a brother, he's a divine martial artist. And now he's into what you're into in terms of the economic resurrection of our people. His name is Haru Neket. Okay, and you ought to speak with him. All right? And he studied with me for a year, him and 4 brothers. And when they were done, they established the Haru Neset Ra and Haru Nest Ast. Herut Nest Ast. By the way, the T is a feminizing factor in the Metuneter. just like in Spanish, the A is, you have señor and señora. In Kemet, you have Assar and est. The T is feminizing in our culture.
Speaking of feminizing, right?
Yes.
Now I want to draw back to the conversation about androgyny. Because you said a lot of different things, and I would have to literally rewind to kind of go back to each point that I wanted to
Precisely.
address. But one of them, context for me matters, right?
Yes.
Like I would never dress like an Egyptian because I would never put on, right, what now is perceived as a modern day skirt. I have no reason to,
Right.
And I also think about the fact that when we honor our ancestors, I don't think honoring our ancestors is just about like wearing what they wore.
True.
It's about the spirit of the principles that
I
they
agree.
gathered, right? And a lot of people want to look like it, but you don't gather none of their principles, right? It's like there's people that would follow, people that claim to be followers of Jesus, but they won't speak truth to get crucified, right? People claim to follow or love Malcolm X, but they don't follow the principles of Malcolm X, but they they might get them tatted or, they might wear a chain or something, but would you live like it? So it's completely different than taking on a symbol, but it's no substance. And then that symbol in new context can have a negative substance, or it can have a miscorrelation where it creates a confusion because now it can change you, but you're not connected to the root of the power that was embedded in that symbol. So when we look at people in a completely different atmosphere and climate and say, well, I'm dressing like my ancestors, well, they dress like that because of their time, right? And their atmosphere and the weather conditions and many different reasons. And that was the style.
Yes.
So you just, this generation, I feel like we pick up everything from every era and we wear it. It's like it's vintage for us.
That's right.
But it don't have any real meaning. And in this era of androgyny, yes, there are real agendas. And this is, the idea of any agenda, as I talk about almost every episode, is my episode having an agenda. It's to enlighten people, right?
Right.
It's to help transform the mind to get you to think. Because if I can get you to think, you can save yourself.
That's
right?
right.
Now you know how to go look at any source of information and find usefulness in it for you and your family for years to come.
That's right.
So if we're taking young males that living in this world today, right? And the world that we live in is attacking your psyche, your mind, right? From the food, from politics, from the school, right? From the environments, everything is an attack so that this young male doesn't grow up into a young man, right? And so the words, I don't respect people who use the word toxic masculinity, especially without the qualifier of what is healthy masculinity. Because anybody that teaches the toxicity of something, right, without teaching the healthy version of it is only multiplying toxicity. So it makes the young man say, well, I don't want to be masculine because every time I hear about masculine, I hear about toxicity.
Yeah,
So you never teach about, and that's because you're coming from a place of trauma. So you're not teaching about it when, let me tell you what healthy masculinity is. Why? What does that do? Now you're programming the psyche of the young men to say, oh, well, that's what I want to become then. Because this is what I always hear what women want. Right? Now when you only hear what they don't want, you only know what you don't want to become. But that's also the only information, and you end up becoming more like that because that's what you have to gather from. Right. So we have to get to a place where it's like androgyny is just, male or female having feminine or masculine traits, right? That are not typical of what society's standard is for that culture. Right. So, anybody can have, like you said, some androgynous traits, but to connect everything to sexual behavior is the issue because we are, and everybody knows this, over-chemicalized and over-sexualized.
No doubt about that.
So when we now are contexting the way we dress, the way we feel, the way we walk, the way we talk, the way we act to sexual desires and sexual identity, then that's when it perverts what it meant to our ancestors. So that's when it's no longer the same symbol. It's a new symbol. It's like what Hitler did with the swastika. It's not the same symbol that it meant for when the Buddhists used it or ancient people used it. Right. That's not the same symbol. So you can take something from our ancestors that represented from them and perverse it in new contexts. Right. And so this is something that I want people to understand. If you don't understand the root of that and you don't practice that society or you don't have true meaning of what you're doing the confused version of it.
That's right.
That's not the highest level of it. The highest level, in my sort of definition of You know, the highest level is part of this philosophy that we get in the world. We get to a point where we do some things at the highest level and then we keep going, right? And when you keep going, it's like saying that black eyes are the highest level of eyes, right? It has the most melanin in it. This is the most strongest eyes, right? Kinky curly hair is the highest level of hair, right? It's going to keep your head cool. It's strong. It's anti-gravity. It's a coil of electricity.
True.
That's the highest level, right? But then what we do because of fashion standards, they going through the perming, they destroyed their hair. That's no longer the highest level. Now it's low level. For what? For fashion in the context of today's culture and society. And so we have to know how to look at ancestral consciousness and intelligence and pull the highest level and say, we've already done good enough.
Yes.
Society today is the most insecure it has ever been in eternity. So the things that we're doing are not from a place of healthy habits. They're from a place of trauma, insecurity, and fear and perversion. So you're not doing the healthy, highest level version of it.
In terms of low level, I feel like there's so much outside noise that people get distracted with. And that includes social media these days. You know, discouraging ourselves, self-doubt is another big low-level item that I would say constantly attacks us. Confidence in ourselves, definitely a low-level item. And I feel like just taking all of that away will definitely be able to reach our highest level of self, and really just focusing in, being consistent, continuing our drive, and being determined to make it is definitely how you try to erase some of that low-level energy.
The highest level tour is, you know, it's a moment in history that we get to think about and relish in and be a part of. This is me proving my thought leadership. This is me implementing the ideas and reinvigorating the spirit that we're going to need to win the future right now.
Well, that's one of the reasons why, like, I feel the way you do. I have made the apron that I wear over my pants. We live in the temperate zone. This is get cold, you know, so we want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
We knock our women for wearing pants, but we want our women to be warm during the winter. So I always say, sister, you don't allow the Pope to take your dress, because that skirt is a powerful symbol of your femininity. Okay? So I'm not going to wear the apron by itself with my legs dangling. No. I could do that during the summer or the beach or something like that. But look, on the hem of my trousers, I have what? The feathers of MAAT. You see that? Which means, and this to me, when I put these pants on, it's a walking meditation in truth, that I'm walking in truth. So it becomes, I'm not wearing the apron, the aper, but I'm wearing the emblem of our spiritual culture, MAAT. And that's why I ask for the formation of a MAAT militia.
The MAAT militia.
That's
okay,
right.
bring some balance to the world.
The that's right, precisely. Because we're living in an age of lies. As you can see, we're being surrounded by eyes. So we need a MAAT militia. And I would say that members of all religions are welcomed to MAAT. Because guess what? And I need to say this. When you read the sacred books that we have today, the Old Testament, the Torah, the New Testament, the Quran, you will see time and time again the Nile Valley Africans provided what? Food for Abraham and Sarah coming in starving. Fed them, they went out richer than they came in because of the hospitality of the Africans of the Nile. We found Moses was found floating down what? The Nile. Was brought into the house of the rulers of that land and went to school in the Ankh, because there was a university attached to every temple in Kemet known as the Ankh, or the House of Life. And that's where he was educated. And he was educated so well that he fulfilled the aim of all teachers, to have your students surpass you in knowledge. Because when Moses goes before the Pharaoh, as we read in the Bible, his argument, which they called a serpent, defeated the serpents of the king. of the king's priests. Why? Because Moses fulfilled the aim of his teachers, that he was able to surpass them in his knowledge. Because that should be the aim of every teacher. That's how we progress. Let's go now to the Christian faith, that Yeshua, who is now called Jesus in the Latin vernacular, according to the book, his father had a dream. Take the child into Egypt to be among his brethren. Why? Because Herod was about to slay the firstborn of Israel, including Yeshua, according to that story. All right? So I say to my Christian brothers and sisters who I love, I cannot not love them because I grew up in the Christian faith. And I want to bring them into the knowledge of MAAT, which was the foundation of the Ten Commandments. All right? We had 42 laws of MAAT, 42 confessions of MAAT, which was undergirded the principle of ethics, of righteousness, of truth. All right? And this is what we lived. And this is what these prophets were taught. You could not come into the Nile Valley and not know about MAAT because you experienced it. Even to this day, when I visited Kemetic, and I've been there several times, the personality of the people, they're very welcoming, I find, except now there's some politics coming into it because there are many of us now claiming the culture. They are afraid that we want to turn, as they have said, Egypt into another Palestine. That we are going to, American blacks are going to come to take over. No, 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 no. You're doing a good job to preserve the implements of the ancient culture of the Nile
And
Valley.
not to cut your wisdom, but there, like, this is the funny thing to me.
Yes.
There are no examples where Black American people have went and destroyed any culture ever.
Precisely.
So that fear
That's not
is
in us.
erroneous.
Yes, it
The
is.
fear doesn't even have any merit whatsoever. But we also, and this is what I wanted to ask you, going directly into that, the ancient Kemetic people who are in Northern Africa, because there's no such thing as the Middle East.
That's right.
Right? It's a politicized term to try to take the pyramids out of Africa. By just making it up as if that landmass is not connected to the continent, which is wildly insane. But when I went there and I looked on the walls and I'm staring around, I ain't seen one light-skinned face. Man, if they were light-skinned, they was like light-skinned. You feel me? I ain't see one pale human being on that wall. They was all dark-skinned, you understand me, melanated with muscles, doing Kemetic yoga, you know what I mean, floating pyramids and living life. I even seen the sister, one of them had braids on and everything. Like, it's irrefutable that was a melanated brown person.
Precisely.
You understand me? So, like, today, we see they try to do all of the fake, reimagining of what what the pharaohs would have looked like, and they always show some Nicolas Cage looking person
in the movies talking in a British accent.
Yeah, these first of all, they wouldn't survive the sun, couldn't work the day in there because they ain't had no suntan lotion back then.
That's right.
You understand me? So I don't know how y'all would have worked. You would have looked, your skin literally would have been burnt and peeling off in that hot sun. But number two, the depictions of the people by the people are still there and preserved.
Yes, yes.
So the idiocy of, if you haven't been there, maybe this is your ignorance because of the way you've been taught, right? And history has been, whitewashed. But in the reality, if you go there and you visit and you look for yourself, there's only one conclusion you can come to.
That's it.
The Egyptians were black. The chemists, the builders of the pyramid were black. That's simple.
Well, I'm going to say this. I would say to my brothers and sisters, you better hurry up because some of the Egyptians, I call them Egyptians because many of them are foreigners, they are now chipping away some of the figures on the temple walls. They're also using pink paint to replace the color of the skins of what you will see on the temple walls.
Too late. It's documented. I've been
It
there.
is.
I already told people that what they look like. It's too late. Y'all can repaint all you want to.
That's right.
Right, but we know the original color. right? It's just like on the planet Earth. You can try to repaint history, but you can only go so far back.
That's right.
Because when you go far back, you go far black. I got a question for you, man. You know, with modern technology now, language changes, right?
Sure it does.
And the way we're using language, like we use emojis, right? Do you consider emojis to be the new metaneture, emojis to be the new hieroglyphs?
Well, as long as we have the input and not just rely on others to create our emojis, that we should create our own that describes what we are about, rather than just signing on to what we are given. Because we always take what people give us.
Come on, man.
And we need to do our own thing.
Right. That'd be dope if we had all hieroglyph,
Precisely.
right, emojis, and it represented principles and things. We ain't got none of that.
Well, you see, the thing is this. We had better hurry up, because the government of Egypt have mandated that all of their children from the 4th grade to the 12th grade are going to become proficient in the Metuneter. And I'm telling you, that's a time bomb that they do not realize that they're planting, because among those children, there are going to be some who are going to be rebellious. And when they find out what's behind that writing, when they find the excellence, the beauty, the high quality of the spirituality of these ancient Africans of the Nile, is going to cause a tremendous catharsis within them, because they have been lied to. They have been told that these people were worshippers of animals, that the worship,
Come on, let's
quote,
get into it.
that the worship, quote, many gods.
Right.
And a whole bunch of lies about these people. And I've got right here, people say, well, Baba Haru, you're not a scholar. No, I never went to a college to get any degrees, because I made it my business to be self-educated.
Come on, man.
And
well,
that's
you
why...
know, those who created all of the herbs that we've had, all of the people who built the pyramids, the people who built civilization, none of them had degrees.
Hey.
And the people with degrees can't figure out how they did it, right? But they was able to line up directly with the degrees of the cosmos. They was able to figure out agriculture and how to feed their people and create systems. Degrees don't create systems. Degrees help you learn about existing systems.
That's it.
Right? So it's not teaching you how to be a creator and a generator and a manifester.
That's it.
That human design is not the blueprint. Maybe if you go to some of the schools that cost millions of dollars to go to, right? But that's not the general education that most people are getting.
That's for sure.
And so we need to, you know, reestablish the ability to learn, right? There's a story, and it's a simple story that everybody knows, but you got to kind of revisit it to really truly appreciate it. It's the story of the Sifu and the master. And the young Sifu, he was a student, and he was pretty good, you understand me, at his katas and his karate or his kung fu, whatever it was. But he heard that there was a master that can teach him to be the greatest who ever was, because he was great. So he goes to him and he says, listen, you know, I just need you to do these few tasks, and then I can teach you everything that I know, right? To the point where you can go teach others. And it's very simple. So he said, I need you to, he gave him some Karate Kid tasks. Go clean the floors, go wash the windows, go fill up the buckets, make sure that everything is spotless, right? Because what he did is he started to look at him and he said, okay, everybody doesn't need everything, but I want to customize this learning towards you. Right? And I'm looking at exactly what you need in order to get to that next level. He said, you're only missing a little bit. So he gave him this task, and the boy came back. He said he finished the task, and he said, what next? And he said, just wait. I got another task for you tomorrow. So he came back the next day, gave him another task. And so he's in there working. End of the day, he said, I completed it. What next? You come back tomorrow. I got another task for you. Right? And so on the third day, and he came at the end of the day, got a little fed up. He said, man, what's going on, man? I've been in here cleaning. I'm trying to become a master, and you got me over here washing floors and stuff like Karate Kid. So he said, listen, there are a few things you need to do in order to become a master. One of them is learn the power of patience. He said, I noticed that you were very impatient, so I gave you tasks that will allow you to become patient, right? Now, I want you to go back in there because you have not learned the lesson that you need in order to become a master. He said, in these ordinary tasks, there's a lot of wisdom. They can teach you focus. They can teach you patience. They can teach you strength and growth. And if you learn these things, because you already have the skill, but this is what you're missing in order to become the master. He said, you can shoot an arrow on the ground and you can hit it every single day. He said the difference is I can do that same thing, but I can do it on a shaky branch, standing tall, right? You can't do that same thing. You can only operate, right, in the space where you're on the ground and it's not chaos and you're not emotionally stirred. He said, for me, I can operate anywhere because I master my emotions. So what I'm teaching you is how to master your emotions. That's how you learn the way of a master, right? And we have a society today where people don't learn the way of things, the art of things, in order to master reality. And so for me, it's like even doing a task and going through the process is teaching you way more than you think you're getting out of it. Going through entrepreneurship, you built a business, it teaches you way more than you think that goal is. You may wanted money, but what you learn, right, was perseverance, right? You learn grit, right? You learn focus, you learn determination. These are the intangible things that are so powerful that we don't appreciate. And so like when I hear you talk about symbols, that's what's in those symbols, right? There are lessons and principles about human nature and society that you can learn that can be evoked. And when that becomes the culture, right, then you can build on top of that. But when you just want the money, right, but there's no culture behind it, right? And so this is the lesson of my generation, right? We have to learn the intangibles. We have to learn the virtues. And when virtues are at the forefront of the culture, now culture is ready to evolve.
That's so true. That's so true. I tell you, as I listen to you, and it brings me into another aspect that our ancestors have been accused of, that they were polytheists. By the way, I want to say to our brothers and sisters out here, we pray to a deity that's totally male concept. It's a totally male concept with the German word Gott or God. And I'm not trying to take that word away from you, because many of our parents, many of our grandparents prayed with that name because of the sincerity of their intent. They got what they prayed for. However, we are called upon to honor our mother and our father, that our days may be long on the earth. So therefore, if our ancestors if the oldest ancestors, the ones who gave refuge to all of the major prophets that we uplift today, called on divinity in the name of Netr, N-T-R, some say Netcher, then are we not called upon to honor them by continuing to use their sounds to invoke the name of the divine? I think it would be something as the same thing with the emojis. We should be creating our own emojis, but based upon a provable classical language that exists today. You see, we are taking a lot of side trips, which is necessary because we should have all of the knowledge that's put in front of us. But we're taking these side trips with the Anunnaki, we're taking the side trips with Atlantis, Lemuria, and Mu. Show them to me now. I can take you to the Nile Valley and I can show you the primary evidence of the existence of a culture and a people that you can read exactly the way they thought. So, for instance, people say, well, Baba Haru, you're not a scholar. Well, I am a scholar in this sense because those who accuse me of not being a scholar, I would invite you to try to sculpt one of my rings, the simplest one. And let me see how you make out with that. Every day I am sculpting the symbols of our culture, whether it be from West Africa, because I do not divide our mother. To me, it's a one with different expressions, just like we always worship the one, Netera, the great divinity, that had many expressions known as the Neteru. Okay? Just like you have God and you have the angels and you have various classification of angels. You have archangels, you have cherubims and seraphims and so on. Well, how come when we do it? And every time I have an opportunity, I recite this. I said, the Bible says, go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider his ways and be wise. It likewise said, be ye wise as serpents and harmless as doves. So, okay, ants can teach you stuff according to our Christian doctrines. So serpents, doves can teach you things, but you're not worshiping the dove,
Burning bushes.
right? You're not worshiping this. Well, the Rasta may have a question about that.
They are on that kush. You know, that kush. Yeah, that burning bush is definitely
Right?
happening.
Oh, yeah, so Moses must have seen
Yeah.
something in that
Holy
burning
smoke.
bush. Oh, you're something else, that 19. I tell you, boy, you keep them hopping, bro. So I'm saying that the time has come for us to be originators again, not just take what is flung at us, like they flung the word Negro at us. We accepted that, and then we changed it. They flung the word African American. We took that, we changed it. We finally settled on black. We and these terms, and I'm saying that we still have more mountains to climb,
Right.
back to our true nature. And I invite our brothers to make that effort. I know we are in habits now, and habits are hard to break because addictions are hard to break. But if you want an N word, call your brother Negus, the king. Call your or Neter, divine.
Right.
Okay. I use the word divine rather than the God word because divine is gender neutral. And one of the things that our culture teaches us is that there's always a mother aspect to divine side by side with a father aspect. Don't forget that even on the earth plane, the principle of Ast and Assar, both their names have a throne in their names. She has the throne and a loaf, symbolic of what? Provision, symbolic of food. Her breast. Matter of fact, the T determinative of the feminine in the Metuneter is or looks almost like a breast. It's a mound. The king's name Assar has a throne and an eye. The eye is symbolic of creativity. So he creates the throne upon which he sits and upon which the mother sits. Why? Because the first throne of a child is the lap of his mother. Okay, because it has the same configuration. That step, it looks like a step. The footrest and the seat and the back rest. Okay, and that is exactly what our ancestors was trying to depict, and what we should once again reclaim. I'm not saying we should stop taking lessons from the Greeks because they have the elementary knowledge, but the fact is our ancestors did not teach that to them. Because one of the priests of Kemet told Solon that you Greeks are mere children. Okay? And so we have to go beyond the child phase to graduate once again the way our ancestors intended us for us to graduate from the Ankh, from the houses of life. Because the truth is life itself. And therefore we should pursue truth the way you brothers would pursue a woman. Okay?
Pursue truth the way you pursue a woman. Oh man, boy, they did it like that. Oh man, it'd be different.
You see?
Let me ask you. I had a thought process as you were speaking. When it comes to the symbols, right? Because the ancient Kemites and Egyptians or whatever, they get accused of worshiping animals, right?
Yes.
Or worshiping the sun and things of that nature. So where is the truth of that and where's the misinterpretation, right? Because we know that these symbols are not, they are analogies, right?
Precisely.
They are not meant to be taken as if we're worshiping a lion, right? Or we're worshiping a falcon.
Right.
So what is the true interpretation?
The interpretation is in the quality of the energy we're speaking about. As you said, they're analogous. They're analogies to human process. When you say, well, he's as strong as a bull, okay, because many of the kings took the title Ka, which a Ka was the bull. And the virility of the bull was specifically the aim there.
The black bull.
Yes, the king had to be strong. And we had special precincts where we kept these animals. And these animals were chosen by certain specific markings to be the divine representation of the Ka of this or that king. All right? And so, in the same way, let me, people say you're not a scholar, so I'm going to read something here for you, brothers and sisters. And I'm reading from this book that all of you can get, by the way. They now call it the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And you know why they call it that? Because most of us are dead to the knowledge that's in here. And in order to keep us dead to the knowledge that's in here, which is the Papyrus of Anui, which I visited the British Museum to look at myself, they call this, we are now not having this knowledge of the original system of spirituality that all of the major religions have borrowed from, because when Champollion discovered that he could, with the help of certain priests who were still alive, that he could read the Meduneter, the Roman Church was very angry, and they even tried to stop Champollion from doing his work, because they knew that as they got into the words of these ancients, it would toss their whole concepts upside down, because they were pretending to be the originators of things that they merely copied very poorly, I need to say. Okay? But listen to what this has to be said from passages of a book written by an Egyptologist. God is one and alone, and none other exists with him. Now, of course, they use the masculine form. But in Kemetic, we would say the divine is one, and none exists with it, because it's a power, it's a force. It's not described in masculine or feminine form, but if we choose to, we say mother, father of all creation. We never deny the inclusion of the mother in things divine or in things earthly. The minute you do that, then you enter into a closed house where the woman is left outside and you are commanding her what to do when she's the one who brought your... I'm about to say something, but I have to curb my tongue, because sometimes the passion, I have to learn how to
Excuse, that's my
control
passion talking.
Yes, God, let me use the term that we use. Neter is the one who hath made all things. Neter is a spirit, a hidden spirit, the spirit of spirits, the great spirit of the Kemetic people, the divine spirit. Neter is from the beginning, and Neter has been from when nothing else existed. And what existed, Neter created after Neter had come into being. Neter is the father of beginnings. Neter is the eternal one. Neter is eternal and infinite and endureth forever and aye. Neter is hidden and no man knoweth Neter's form. No man has been able to seek out Neter's likeness. Neter is hidden to Neter, to divinities, and to human beings, and to men. And Neter is a mystery unto Neter's creatures. No man knoweth how to know Neter. Neter's name remains hidden. Neter's name is a mystery unto Neter's children. Neter's names are innumerable. They are manifold, and none knoweth their number. Neter is truth, and Neter lives by truth, which is MAAT, by the way. Neter feeds upon truth. Neter is the king of truth, the queen of truth, and Neter has established the earth thereupon. Neter is life, and through Neter only man lives, only humanity lives. Neter gives life to human beings. Neter breathes the breath of life into the nostrils. Neter was never begotten. Neter produced, but was never produced. Neter begat Neter's self and produced Neter's self. Neter created but was never created. Neter is the maker of his own forms, of its own forms. I use the term its. And the fashioner of its own body. Neter itself is existence, endureth without increase or diminution. Multiplieth Neter's self millions of times, and is manifold in forms and in members. Neter has made the universe. Neter has created all that is there is in. Neter is the creator of heaven and of earth and of the deep and of the water and of the mountains. Neter has stretched out the heavens and founded the earth. What Neter's heart conceived straightway came into pass, and what Neter has spoken, it comes to pass and endureth forever. Neter is the father of the Neteru. Neter fashions men and formed the Neteru. Neter is merciful unto those who reverence Neter. Neter hears the one that calls upon Neter. Neter knows him that acknowledges Neter. Neter rewards him that serves him and protects the one that follows Neter. This is what the Egyptologists have said, and according to the writings that they have interpreted. Now, you have accepted the interpretations of the Hebrew language, of the Aramaic language. How come you don't want to deal with what your ancestors have left written in stone? By the way, Martin Luther King, when he was going to college, he wrote a paper showing the Trinitarian concept existed in the names and the Greek names of Isis, Osiris, and Horus thousands of years before the Roman, now the modern Trinity. And now the modern Trinitarians are denying that they got anything from these ancient ones. And of course, the movies that are being made in Hollywood would have us turn away from seeing these ancient Kemetic people as capable of the worship of the divine, that they worshipped animals. By the way, the images that so many ink has flowed against, these images served a purpose. They were not worshipped. They served a purpose of focusing the mind on a divine principle. So I just had to read that from a book. Those of you, brothers and sisters, who love Malcolm, who have read his book, don't forget that Malcolm studied a dictionary the way you would read a book while he was imprisoned. He became a master of words, and as a result, a master communicator. Nowadays, a young man living in the hood, when he uses a polysyllable, he's accused of speaking white. So brothers are helping others, young brothers, to be dumbed down, to turn away from the use of language. Words have power. And if somebody is able to rule you with their words that they have created, you are at a deficit. So therefore, you should strive to become a master of whatever language you find yourself immersed in. If you in France, become a master of French. If you in England, become a master of English. If you are here in America, become a master of English, because most of the dialects that we speak were taught by those plantation overseers who were sent from the jails of England. The same thing happened to the brothers and sisters in Australia, because England emptied out their jails of the most decrepit human beings on the face of this earth, and they were the teachers of our ancestors on the plantations of this country. Okay, so a lot of our language, our speech patterns, which we sometimes call Ebonics, and I'm not saying that we don't have some original accents from natives here on this land, who were us, by the way, because the first people everywhere looked just like us, okay? From the Olmecs, the Aztecs, they are latecomers, and they looked upon, and what's the other group that we like to speak about in South America? We have the Aztecs and the,
Mayans?
The Mayans.
Yeah.
They were preceded by the Olmeca. By the way, the word Olmec, they don't even know the names, but their faces will tell you exactly who they were.
Right.
Because their physiognomy is, you cannot deny who you're looking at when you look at the face of an Olmec.
Yeah, that's the thing about us. They always try to make us deny our eyes.
Yes.
Like, I could see it. I don't need to know nothing else.
That's it.
Like, you can come up, you could try to justify why what you seeing, right, is not real, but I don't need no other explanation, right? So they come up with a whole entire, subjects of scholarship to try to disprove what I'm seeing with my eyes, with this big nose, big lips, brown skin, and that's not a black person, because the pigmentation back in the day, or maybe they just represented it that because it was hard to shape. Like, come on, man. Come on. You ain't fooling me. You fooling you.
when Graham Hancock is saying that the Aboriginal people told some of the anthropologists that the white men came. Who are these white men? The ancients were not blind. They know white when they see it, because Africans have always daubed white paint on their faces when they went into ritual. Okay? To this day, we wear white when we go into ritual. So you'll be recognized as a what? As a being of light. All right? That was the meaning of, because you want to be recognized by the spirits of light. So you would put that clay pipe on your face or on your body.
So that's where clowns get it from.
Ah, there we go.
Right.
And the clowns are some of your best teachers. People forget that.
You know, that's definitely interesting. Most of the rituals that we practice, most of the meaning is lost, right?
Yes.
Like,
Precisely.
as we was talking about symbols and what they mean, like, you know, we're still very much connected to it. We talked about that with Billy Carson. Like, when people pray, they say amen, right? When you talk about, you know, sunset, that's Asset, right? Sunrise, that's Ra. So you're still correlating, right, the sun, right, with these ancient terms, but not even realizing it, right? And that's where, you know, studying comes from, right? Whether you call it newt and, you know, there, but we call it nut in English language.
Right.
Right? Which still is correlating to, you know, the first teachers of thought and what it meant. And we just sort of changed it a bit, but don't realize the root of those things. So it's like when you see the jackal represents cunningness, right?
Yes.
Or you seen the snake, you know, represents, it's real multiplicity because it has the two, you know, slithering tongue. And it's not a negative thing, even though people connotate the snake with something negative, even though if you study like Kundalini sciences, then you know that snake is a representation of that energy coiled within the body that can go up that system, right? That can have that inner knowing within the mind. The snake has never been a negative thing, right? But in today's society, we look at the snake as wrong, right? And
because moderners, they forget that the snake is a symbol of the divine feminine principle, which they call the Kundalini.
right.
Okay? And so the Kushite kings wore two cobras on their crowns. The Nile Valley Africans, they were a cobra and a vulture, known as the Nebti, or the two ladies' names of the king. All right? And so that is something that everything that modern humans have ascribed to the feminine is always put down. Okay? Anything that's ancient that shows the power of the divine feminine, they're always going to find a way to put it down. There's something strange about Western man, that he wants to totally control the woman, who is his very mother. You see? And I am here to say it's not going to last too long.
Yeah, when you look at all of the old movies, the way that the kings treat their mothers, right, and their wives, right, it's always bad, right? And I've talked about this plenty of times. It's because they didn't put any value in the woman, right? And that's why all of their statues, they were little boys, because their program is of pedophilia and pedestry, right? It has nothing to do with honoring the sacred divine feminine at all. Right, and so that's not something that, you know, you should even take lightly when you think about how that's embedded within culture, right? How, you know, Sigmund Freud in his psychology, he recognized that there was a Cronus complex, right? He talked about the Oedipus complex, and I tell people all the time, like, that's not our complex. We don't have those that's their complex. Right? You know, we simple. We not that complex. You know what I'm saying? Like, we love our mothers. Right? Honor thy mother, honor thy father. It's a very simple thing. And so, you know, as we are trying to re-embark on reestablishing the connection between, you know, what happened thousands of years ago, what is the importance of even knowing that, right? But before you even get into that, I want people to understand again, because you was hitting on the point of how they didn't worship animals, right?
No.
These were principles, right?
That's right.
And these were ideas, right? So you have to look in, what does the falcon mean, right? What does the snake mean? So that you can actually understand what you're seeing when there's a falcon head in a man's body, or there's a a lion head, or a falcon body. Like, this is a representation of courage and wisdom and things of that nature. It's not a representation of we worship cats.
That's it.
And some people, that's what they take it as a form of, like, oh, they worship the animals. They weren't vegans.
Again,
From what I know, was the ancient Egyptians vegans?
well, not entirely. They ate fowl, and you would see Amentutank and his wife Atenra Ankh. You would see that she's offering him an arrow while he's in the thickets shooting ducks.
So I don't think they was worshiping animals if they was eating animals. That's all I was saying.
And I would say this too. Whatever animals they were eating is not the same kind of animals we're
nowhere
eating
near.
today.
Listen, when we went to Egypt, they was offering us pigeon at the restaurants. Now out here, out there it's a delicacy. Now, out
Yes.
here, pigeons are the most ghetto birds
Yeah, right.
in the world. And they live amongst us, and they not afraid of human beings. So eating pigeon is like, it just don't make sense. Like eating family members, like they always around. We feed pigeons, we don't eat them. But
Right.
that's not a knock to y'all. If y'all want to keep pigeon munching, that's on y'all. But I'm just saying.
Yeah,
When I
yeah.
went out there, I believe that they replaced what they said was chicken with pigeon. You understand me? Because it was some people getting plates of pigeon, and they thought they was ordering chicken. And I'm like, I ain't never.
Yeah, seen one that small, right?
No, I ain't
A
seen one that
drumstick
looked
that
like
small.
that exactly. You know what I'm saying? It was
True.
Kentucky Fried Pigeon. It wasn't Kentucky Fried Chicken. So what do you think, though?
And by the way, those pigeons are being fed denatured chemicals, because don't forget, the river itself does not. The inundation of the soil that used to come in the waters is backed up behind the Aswan High Dam. That's why the Egyptians today are using chemical fertilizers, where they never had to rely on chemical fertilizers before, because 75% of the inundation of the yearly menstruation of the river Hapi was the soil that came in the waters. That dark silt that made of that delta region the breadbasket of the then known world. That's why all the foreigners wanted to conquer that land, because that's where they got their food. And that was responsible for our economic viability because of the grain. And you can see that we recently made a movie by Taki Grant, which was photographed and filmed by Tehuti Films. One of my students, I encouraged him to go with Taki Grant to Kemet to film this film called Hapi. And because Hapi, the river itself, was the bloodline of the economy of the nation of Smai-Tawi.
That's a fact.
Okay? Without that river, and that's the reason why the modern day Egyptians are a little angry at the Kushites, because they're building another dam in Kush in Ethiopia, which they have every right to do. It's their land, in order to get more power, more electromagnetic power to build their nation, to
But see,
build
that
the
was
industry of
the
their
great
nation.
thing about them, is that they understood that, they can get their people to work as long as they feed them.
Precisely.
Right? And so by them mapping the stars and understanding agriculture and harvesting, they was able to feed the people, right? You don't get to build massive projects like, this pyramids without feeding the people correctly. They can't do the work.
That's it.
And so we live in places where people, like in America, there's a lot of homelessness and people starving,
Yes.
right? It shouldn't exist. When you look at the bottom of a society, that really represents the morals of a society, right? And the rest of it is covered up in glamour and suits and, fine things. But no, go look at the worst of it. That's the true humanity of any society, is those who are treated the worst.
As a matter of fact, the first foreign workers, who were the Slavic people, who were hired to work in the turquoise mines in the Sinai Peninsula. because turquoise was sacred to the Divine Mother in her name of Het Haru, known as Oshun in the Yoruba system, the Divine Mother who is a nurturing principle. Okay, and that turquoise, which represented both the heavens and the ocean, that deep blue, that turquoise waters, which you can really find when you go to the islands where I grew up, in Tortola and around Virgin Gorda and Anegada. There you will find the turquoise waters. And so the first people were the Slavs, from whom we get the word slave. Yeah. And that's the reason why I insist that we were never, never slaves. We were enslaved. We were enslaved by a people who were lazy and did not want to do the work to feed themselves, okay? And got us and beat us within an inch of our lives to provide them with the sustenance that they needed. Because who do you think they brought over here? They didn't bring ignoramuses over here. Not all of us were unlettered. They brought over some of the best to survive that middle passage.
Right.
You had to be among the strongest and the best. And to survive the plantation, to survive Jim Crow, to survive the growing tendency to this racist attitude, you've got to be made of superior stuff. And I say that especially to my brothers and sisters here in America. Just because some of you have gone south, away from your true nature. I shouldn't say gone south because south is the source, really, both here and in our continent, because the royalty came from the south, not from the north. Okay, no matter what you have been told, it came from the south. Kush was the very, as a matter of fact, the land of Kemet would not even be there if it were not from the soil that came in the waters of the inundation, and people tend to forget that.
What is when you say inundation, what do you mean?
The inundation is the flow of the river that was heralded every year. We used to celebrate what we call Wep Renput. Wep Renput means the opening of the year. And that was a celebration that was inaugurated in my shrine, the Shrine of Ptah, here in America. And it's still celebrated every year here. The Temple of Anu, I just went up with them upstate, I think it was in upstate New Jersey, to a reservation where we celebrated the Wep Renput, or the opening of the year. The inundation is the yearly menstruation of the river, where the waters come from Lake Tana, mixing with the waters coming from Nyanza, Victoria in the south, and together they meet in the city of Khartoum in Sudan, and then flow down as one stream. Now, this is where we get the concept of the two ladies, Ast and her sister Nebethet. These two rivers are equated with the ones who resurrected the body of Assar. Why do you think Assar's face is painted green on some of the pictures? Because Assar is known as the vegetation. And sometimes his face is painted with a dark complexion. Why? Because the soil is dark. The food.
For those who don't know the story of, Set and Osiris, can you give us the story?
Okay.
And I want to really get into Set as well.
All right. In the first times, our ancestors didn't say in the beginnings because there's the first times of every age. We are now in the first times of the Aquarian age. We have just went through the last times of the Piscean age. We went through the water element, and now we are ruled by the air element. Why else do you think the multiplication of all this stuff on the airwaves, the internet, I call it the internet because it's a divine instrument that gets to many ears and many eyes that you wouldn't ordinarily capture. And so our people are being educated because of the airwaves. They even Bob Dylan said the answer is blowing in the wind, and this is a dawning of the age of Aquarius again, by that wonderful group that always had Kemetic symbols on their, what's their name? Refresh me.
I don't know. You was there. I can't remember their name, but I know exactly what they was.
This is the dawning of the
Yeah,
age
they got,
of
because I watched
Aquarius.
the Netflix doc where they was doing that. We'll put them on the screen.
Yes, right. Please do that. That in the first times there was the cosmic forces of creation. There was Nut, the heavens, and there was Geb, the earth. And between them there was the atmosphere of the water and the wind, known as Shu. And Shu had a consort known as Tefnut. So everything was paired in the first times. There was always a masculine and feminine energy. So now, when this cosmic force coalesced and came to the earth plane, it came as a man and a woman. There were two pairs. There was Ast, the Divine Mother, and Assar, the Divine Father. And there was Nebuchadnezzar, the sister of Ast, and there was Set, the brother of Assar. So now, and there was Heru-Ur, which means the old Heru. But Heru-Ur had not yet manifested on the earth plane as a ruler, like they say in the Christian faith that Jesus was from the beginning, but did not manifest on earth until later. The same thing happened with Heru-Ur. That Heru-Ur existed but was kept in abeyance until manifestation on earth as the kings and queens of the nation. All right? So now, Heru, when they came on earth, they came to begin life on this plane, to start over again, because there had been a previous civilization that was destroyed. And Assar, and they had fallen into cannibalism and a whole lot of other craziness, according to our cosmology. And Assar, he went around teaching the art of the cultivation of the soil, of the growing of food, of the farming and the gardening. And Set, his brother, got jealous of him. Okay, so the Cain and Abel story was preceded by this original story of Assar and Set. When evil entered into the world, when Set sought to slay his brother Assar and succeeded, and put his body into a coffer. And I would suggest that our brothers and sisters read this story. Familiarize yourself with your ancient mythology. And when you say it's a myth, it doesn't mean it did not happen. It did not happen historically, because as my beloved brother Herujed Ma'at Aten Ra of the shrine of Ma'at in Harlem, known as Jabari Osaze, who they call the Floyd Merriweather of the conscious community, as he teaches us that myth is something that is always happening. History is something that has happened. Okay?
I like that. I like that. Myth is something that's always happening.
Yes.
So the story of Set and Osiris, brothers, similar like Cain and Abel.
Yes.
Right? Or Set and Osiris.
Yes.
Right? And then, so yeah, keep telling me what exactly happened between them after he got jealous. He killed his brother?
Well, yes, because his brother became very popular. Assar used music. That's part of the reason why I'm a musician too, to charm the people, and he was loved because of his musical ability, and he taught them to stop all this killing and to cultivate most of their food, so they wouldn't have to be slaughtering all these animals. All right, and so Set became jealous of Assar. Now, again, let me give a little side view here of something that has happened. Now, remember, in the story of Cain and Abel, and this is what has messed up with our dietary practices, because in the Cain and Abel story, Cain brought his offering of pulse, which are vegetables, ground food, to offer to God, right, according to that story. And Abel brought the fat of a bullock. How did he get the fat of that male ram? He had to kill the ram. However, the shepherd's deity loved this burning flesh. He said that it was wonderful to his nostrils, the burning flesh of the Abel's offering, and he denied Cain's offering. Well, that was the first put down of a more mostly vegetable lifestyle and the embrace of a more meat-eating lifestyle. And look at the results in our churches today. Because if you're part of the flock, chances are you will be courting obesity, and which is a ticket out of here with this COVID variations that we're now seeing, because the majority of people who passed were obese in both the so-called white and the so-called black people here in America. And where did they get that obesity from? From the overindulgence in flesh foods, which constipates and which ruins the virility of the prostate gland, because all that acidity, all that uric acid causes to corrode. Acid corrodes iron. So if you are eating all this acidic food, you are going to corrode your iron, and therefore the fat is going to proliferate. You're going to damage the works of the kidneys, damage the works of the pancreas with all this sugar, with all the stuff that we're eating, and that's being pushed on us as being very healthy. All right? I remember when I turned from eating flesh, because in the islands where I grew up, we only ate meat once a week. A small little piece of beef. And my father and my grandfather, we used to rear cattle. I used to get up every morning to milk the cow, okay? And we used to slaughter animals. I helped to slaughter animals when I was a child. However, that they were eating grass and water, okay? I was riding my donkeys and my horses bareback to take care of my cows and my mules and donkeys growing up in the islands, okay? Carrying water on my head from the cistern. I'm relating lifestyle at the time. There was no electricity in the village I grew up in. I read by lamplight. I studied by lamplight, and of course I was very proficient in my studies, and the women loved me for my brain, but they gave the you-know-what to the gangsters.
I'm sure you still got your fish.
Well, I was a late bloomer. As a preacher's son, I had to set an example.
Yes, sir.
So I was still
sure.
a virgin by the age of 18, but by the time I got loose from that
a different
influence,
version after that.
Woo!
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't get
It was
enough.
a different version of Haru out in America.
You know it? Oh, yeah. For sure. Yes. So anyway, so again, this, by the way, I'm enjoying this conversation with you, my brother.
Yes, sir, likewise.
Your input and is very timely, and we are dealing with so much information that sometimes seems almost jumbled. But I would invite our brothers and sisters to rewind and go back, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to send me a comment or something like that, and I will do my best to answer.
When you learn how to use your mind, that's when you start to operate into the divine. You start to tap into your God power. That's when you operate and learning how to take your thoughts and form them into reality. That's when you pull things from the darkness and you bring it into light, into reality. And that's when you have the power to change the world, and you can bring wealth to generations into your family. There's power that's going on, why don't you go grab it? There's crowns out there, why don't you put your on? There's a lot of food money, why don't you knock it down and slap the devil and tell him it's your time? What we waiting for? I'm ready to go to the highest level. If you're ready to rock with us, if you're ready to build with us, because we're not waiting on nobody. Once we get on the mission, we in motion and we devote it, we give liberation to our people. Our freedom ain't talking about the identity that's connected to the evils that the agenda gives you. No, we're talking about actually knowing that you God and standing tall and speaking truth, the power against all odds. They look at me and say, how's you a black man? How you walk, how you talk, how you dress, how you move, how you move? Why you know yourself so much? Why you so damn cool? Why you got confidence? Because I decided that I would never live at the lowest level. That's the assignment. I decided I would be a God. Every single day I got to wake up and I got to train. They don't like when we grow. They don't like when we talk well. They don't like when we talk any kind of power. lowest level to the highest level. That's what we hold. Ha, 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 ha.
We're going to the highest level. Make sure y'all come with us.
The highest level tour is, it's a moment in history that we get to think about and relish in and be a part of. This is me proving my thought leadership. This is me implementing the ideas and reinvigorating the spirit that we're going to need to win the future right now.
So, what about the story of the resurrection of the God?
Okay, so now, after Assar was slain, and his body was put into a coffer, and I'm going to show you how that story is likewise prophetic. Oh yes. The coffer was pushed out to sea, and it got caught up. The body of Assar, by the way, before that, there was a great party, and everybody was drinking, and there was merriment going on, and they rolled out a coffer made of beautiful wood, encased with jewels all over it. And they had a game called Who Fits the Coffer? And all the guests would get into the coffer, and it didn't fit any of them because it was made for one, which was Assar. But when Assar got in the coffer, according to the mythological story, Set closed the lid. Assar suffocated, and Set took the coffer and hid it by the bulrush. There's that bulrush story again, Moses in the bulrush. And eventually, Set realized that, oh gosh, the evidence of my foul deed is still with us because the body of Assar is hidden, but it may be found. So he went and took the body out and cut it into 14 pieces and threw his henanum, which they call penis or phallus, into the ocean. It was swallowed by a fish. And then the coffer, asked the Nebuchadnezzar now, they took Anpu, the jackal, because the jackal is also famous for his sense of smell, sniffing the ground wherever a part of Assar's body was buried. And when these two sisters found all these parts of Assar, they brought it into one place and laid it on a lion couch. But they couldn't find the henanum, the organ of regeneration. So guess what? They, according to the myth, they got a piece of wood and fashioned the henanum. And Ast was at Assar's feet.
That's where the term morning wood comes from.
Precisely! Because in the islands, that's what we used to refer to the henanum as a wood. Because it would get stiff in the morning.
And dead morning, so morning wood.
Yes!
Oh, yeah.
You see the connections? When you know this legacy, it traces. You can trace things to their beginnings, to their original forms, instead of the ones that we've been given. And so Ast was at his feet, and Nebuchadnezzar, her sister, was at his head. And the concept of angels with wings prevail now because of the imagery of the ancient Kemetic showing that they both had wings. And Nebuchadnezzar was fanning Assar's at his nostril, and so his breath quickened. And when his breath quickened, his organ arose, but the organ was not attached to his groin, it was at his navel. Okay? And that's the reason why the Roman Church went around defacing any images where they showed the henanum coming out of Assar's body, because they thought that it was obscene. Okay? And so when Assar, but after the body was assembled, Set found the coffer and pushed it out to sea, and it got caught up in the roots of a tree on the island of Byblos, which is the origin of the word Bible. Okay, and Ast, the divine wife of Assar, went looking for the body of her husband, and some children playing by the seashore told her, though the king took the king of this of another smaller kingdom, found this coffer caught up in the roots of a tree, and he took it to his palace and made it the central column in his palace. So Aset, she disguised herself as a nursemaid and went to the king's palace. And the king of Byblos, and told and masqueraded herself as a nursemaid. And one evening, she was taking the king's child and passing it through the fire to give the child the gift of immortality. And the wife of the king said, "Get this woman out of here, she's burning my child," which Aset was not doing. She was just giving him a gift of immortality. And then the Aset broke down and told the king, "In that coffer caught up in the root of the tree is my husband's body." And then she revealed who she was. And the king, knowing that she was the queen of one of the largest nations, said, "You can take your husband's body back." And she took the coffer and hid it by the bulrush on the shore. And that is when Set, now I come back to how it happened. Set took the body, cut into 14 pieces, and scattered it around. And then when they brought the body of Assar together again, then Ost, who was at the feet, transformed herself into a female falcon and flew over the erect organ of Assar. And you will see the imagery. It's on both papyrus and on stone. Mm-hmm. She took the seed of Haru into her womb, all right, and became pregnant with Haru, who will now become the avenger of the wrongs done to his mother and father, and who would re-establish Ma'at. Haru nech ratef henamut, that Haru avenges the wrongs done to his mother and father. And that was his mission, to restore Ma'at. So, when I taught Kemetics 101, I would tell this story.
So he was resurrected through his son, but he wasn't resurrected himself?
No.
Okay.
Because his son became his ear, and Haru became the one. And Haru, Assar remained in Amenta to receive the souls that were coming to the west, to the same place that the sun seems to set, even though the sun doesn't set, it's the earth that turns. Mm-hmm. We know this. So,
what does the symbol of the falcon represent?
The falcon, the falcon is the hero bird. The very word Haru produced the word hero. Mm. Okay, the falcon has the keenest vision of all the birds. See, I'm wearing a falcon here. Mm-hmm. Okay, the falcon head, and it never misses what it aims for. It could be about 2 miles up in the sky. It'll see a mouse on the ground or a flock of pigeons, and whatever it decides to have for dinner or for lunch, it never misses what it aims for. So therefore, the kings who took this title Haru, which, by the way, is a title that I took on because I was born with the name. It's my family's name. I was born into a family who was always into service of one kind or another. My great uncle was a formulator of the assembly in the British Virgin Islands. My cousin ruled for 20 years as the governor of the British Virgin Islands, Elton Georges. Okay? Yeah. So when I took the title Haru, Dr. Ben says, "You cannot take the name of the god." I said, "Dr. Ben, I was born with the name. It's my family's name." He said, how is that? I said, "Well, in English they call it Georges." Mm. And the English have a myth called Saint George who slew the dragon. And I'll explain that later, okay? And so I was born in La República Dominicana, in the city of La Romana. And being born there, my name was pronounced Hiorhes. Hiorhes is Horus in Greek. Horus is Heru in the Metuneter. So I took
Super Heru. So the mythology of Heru, births the superheroes, which are a representation of the gods of ancient Kemet.
There you go. Which later became adopted as the anthropomorphic deities of the Greeks.
Right, like Superman.
Yes.
Who gets his power from the sun, which would be Ra. You understand me? And he is the greatest superhero, Super Heru, would be a representation of that then. Well,
you've explained it.
Yeah. And then in the story of Set and Osiris, right, and the woman, like, it's so many, like, listening to that story, you can get a lot out of it, right?
Oh, no doubt.
Because it all of those things can have so much representation and meaning, right? Even the way that he was cut down, right,
Yes.
and destroyed, but his body was. But then the woman comes and speak life
Yes.
into the dead body and brings life into him, right? And then that life is transferred into the son, right? And so when you understand that power, number one, that the woman has, right, to speak life into that dead body, I believe Dr. Wesley, he gave a great breakdown on
Yes.
this story and this interpretation, like that resurrection. And I think that, you know, even when you know, the word resurrection and erection are very, you know, closely
Right.
regarded, right? Because the phallic symbol of the penis is the life giver, right? So
Yes,
that's
the
the
seed carrier,
resurrection.
right.
That's how you can be resurrected through, you know what I mean, yourself through the womb. That's a process of resurrection, right? And so you're constantly giving life and producing life, right? This is this process that we have that because it's never been taught, like sex and, you know, the womb of the woman, I don't feel like has ever been properly taught to our generation, especially in Western world, right? So we don't look at it as the life chamber. We don't look at us having the ability to produce life. We don't have much sacredness in regard to our powers and abilities because we are super herus. We can give life. We have the power of mind. We have the power of cleverness. Of all of the animals that are used analogous to represent, you know, principles and ideas, we have all of those powers. We are the super herus.
That's right.
Right? And so for me, I use my super heru power, which is my mind, which is my power of communication to speak life into the dead. Right? And so for women, I believe one of those powers of understanding that is that that man being chopped down, you know, by the world or by his brother or by whatever consequence, you have the ability to speak life into that dead God.
My
And
brother,
to resurrect that God.
no doubt. You see, and this is where our women need to know this original story of the power of the woman, because look,
Like what was the queen who ruled Hashet? What was her name?
who Hatshepsut?
Yeah, Hatshepsut.
Okay, but that's later on. I want to give them. I want to give our women this
Come on, give them some
this gift
keys.
from our legacy. That in the original story, these two women made the resurrection of the crucified Savior, of the dismembered Savior, possible. Not only did they put his body together again, even the Henanum, which was thrown in the river and was swallowed by a fish, and that has great meaning, and I'm going to tell you the meaning of that in a minute. That in itself shows that the story that came after, when Mary and Martha went to the sepulchre where Yeshua was laid, Yeshua had arisen all by himself. And when they looked up in the sky and they saw that he ascended to heaven as a dove to be with his Father, according to the scripture. However, in the original story, the women made his resurrection possible. By putting his body back together again, they were on time. They didn't miss. Assar did not resurrect by himself.
Come on.
He
Talk to him.
depended upon the divine feminine principle
Talk to
to
him.
raise him up. Okay? And that's why I said, sisters, all that twerking, stop bringing our attention to your backside. We're interested in what is in the front, okay?
Front side. Talk to him.
Precisely. We want to deal with that womb.
Some
We
front
want to honor that
side
womb.
attraction.
And that's the reason why I assisted my then wife, Queen Afua, who I was an apprentice to for 20 years, to write that book, Sacred Woman, a guide to healing the
Boy, you a
feminine
legend.
body, mind, and spirit.
See, before you even finish your wisdom, because that is such an important key that most people just don't understand, right?
Yes.
Queen Afua, I love Queen Afua. We did a great interview with
I
her.
saw that.
A great conversation, rather. And there's so many women who get help from that book.
Yes.
Right? Sacred Womb.
Sacred Woman.
Sacred Woman, sorry. But that book, and I always tell people, like, she's one of those ones that I believe that, you know, women don't have many women to look up to in this day and age that have some wisdom and some insight on how to tap into their sacredness. And in that book, there are rituals, there are components of it that one can go through and develop themselves. And so, but it's important because these so-called gender wars, right, which is not the work of God, anytime you got man and woman fighting each other, that got to be work of the devil. You understand me? That's the only word that can come from. So when you are caught up in that, then that's what you know that you are a part of. But
That's it.
I said that for this particular reason. That is one of the greatest books written for women, right? And a man was a part of that.
That's right.
And so we don't look at that, that like they come in pairs.
That's right.
There are certain unions that can bring about great things to the world. You are married to Queen Afua. Without that marriage, we don't get Sacred Woman.
That's it.
Right? And the women that were helped from that book don't get that assistance as well.
That's it.
So the greatest things on this planet Earth comes from our union and our pairing and our balance.
That's it.
Right? And so when we recognize that, it's when you can, the man is going through what we consider all of these agendas, who can help bring this man to life?
That's it.
Right? That woman can speak so much life into that man, but instead of putting out, oh, I don't like this, or he's this, or he's that, that's not how you resurrect what you want to see. That's not how you bring life into that body. You can cut them down or you can bring them up. Now, it's up to you to accept your super Harus, your superpowers. You understand me? Now, when you do, and you learn how to speak life and you learn how to speak positivity and you use that divine feminine essence that you have, then that's when you start to see that rise. So the man has the ability as well to protect the essence of that woman and her power so she can use her powers in that manner. That's the divine balance. But when we don't know these principles, and if you study whether you are in Islam, whether you are in Christianity, if this is not bringing you closer to each other, then you're not practicing it right. Because the thing is, a man can have a perfect religion, but that doesn't mean that the man is perfect. So sometimes we are people practicing things that are perfect, but in imperfect ways.
Yes.
And sometimes we look at ourselves, we don't represent these things. These are things that we're working to represent.
Yes.
Right? And so as whatever spiritual system that you consider yourself to be a part of, will it help you heal the world? Will it help you heal yourself? Will it help you heal the unions and create better families and conditions for our society? If that's not built, if the solution and the power, if not built into it, then perhaps your understanding is lacking or what you are practicing is lacking. And that's where we need to take a look and unfold. How does this world have all these problems, but everybody said they following the right God? Shouldn't God give you the solution to these problems that the devil has presented?
Well,
or perhaps maybe that what you say you believe, you don't really know.
Well, again, it may be because the God is one and alone as a male, but if MAAT is present, it would mandate a sacred balance between these two thrones. Okay? You see now, let me just veggie back a bit. I don't say piggyback.
We veggie back.
Let's veggie back a bit. When Assar's Henanum was thrown into the river and was swallowed by a fish, that indicates that we had not had power during the whole of the Piscean age. Now, with the age of Aquarius, Shu is restoring the breath of life to our memory. And now we are discovering, due to the influence of so many of our teachers, people like Joseph Ben Jochanan, Dr. Ben, John Hendrik Clark, and so many others, okay? The beloved sister who wrote the ISIS papers, all of these wonderful teachers have inspired us. And now, now that the organ has been found because the wind has dried up the waters of the Piscean age, and now you can discover what you lost, African brother. You can take your Henanum back, okay? And you can now regenerate your power, okay?
Well, I like that. I hope they understand what you were just saying, because when you talking about that story, it was thrown in the river, a lot of people don't understand that their manhood has been thrown in the river.
Precisely.
And they haven't grabbed it back and reattached it to themselves to stand up. You understand me? And assert themselves.
That's
right? Like that statue I talk about, it's the mother of the bull statue, where it's the erect penis and it's the fist up. That represents power in the mind and body. But where's your power? Right? And so it's not until, like, if you can't allow them to teach you and program you to sacrifice your own manhood.
Yes, sir.
Because what does that make you? Easier to control? Right? Does that make you more powerful? No, go ahead and get it and reattach it, but it's only going to be a reattachment when you got the right union.
Precisely.
You understand me? We can't win. I don't want, listen, I seen a movie the other day, and it was just all women in the world, right? And it was only one man left. It was a very interesting movie because they showed how women quickly just took on all of the characteristics of what you would consider to be men, right? They were at war. They were killing each other. The politics was bad. It was murder. It was crazy. And I thought about like, damn, it was just, if I'm the only man left, I wouldn't want to be there. You understand me? Because I don't think you can have it. I got to have my brothers there, at least the homies there. It's too much, right? But it gave a interesting depiction, right, of the world and why it's necessary to have balance. Why a world of women is not the answer. The world of men is not the answer.
You need
Otherwise, we were made for each other.
Precisely.
So all this politics that's in the middle of what we feel, what's going on, the traumas, the dramas, all of that, you have to understand that that's far away from what we were made for. We were made to serve each other.
Precisely.
Now, there's nobody that can get away from that because our body parts was made to be intertwined with each other.
That's it.
The greatest unification is the man and the woman producing life.
That's it.
There's nothing, they got scientists trying to produce, they had two mice where they took the cells from a mice and they were trying to figure out how we can make these cells from a mice turn into have enough parts where it basically kind of turn into a female and then impregnate the female and then have a womb. And these scientists are basically trying to figure out how to create a baby without women or create a baby with just men, right? Or all of these different things. Now, this is not African science. And this is what you have to understand. Like, every time I see something like that, I ask myself, why? Like, listen, Africa is the fastest growing population on earth right now, right? That phallus symbol is working very good over there. Yeah. So nobody in Africa is trying to figure out how to bioengineer babies. You know what I'm saying? The scientists are just going to have babies. We already figured that out. We don't need y'all to do that. So, but why is the question? So when you see the devils and his workings and they spread throughout the world, right? It's not for us, it's for him, right? He is Frankensteining in this world. And so we got to understand we can't claim all sciences. Those are not our sciences. That's whatever they got going on, that's not good. And so we have to learn to understand the Kemetic sciences, things that are tapped into our beliefs and our ancestral intelligence and, righteousness. Otherwise, all science ain't good because science is a religion unto itself that controls the world. That's it. Science is always being disproven. Right? And science mostly never proves anything. It's theorized. Yet, and this is how I want to get to as well in this conversation. We have, the emerald tablets, right? And many, tablets and scroll were said to essentially be able to give you all the answers of the world, right? You can unlock whatever. And as you talked about the internet is that for our age. We now have artificial intelligence. True. Right? And that I can ask any question, right? And I have access to the stream of consciousness throughout the entire globe from what's known from man's history, and I can even synthesize and create new thoughts. But the question is, if man doesn't have power over his own mind and his own body, none of that matters. We the greatest technology.
Especially if you have to get a portion of your mind back, your ancestral mind back, in order to interpret the stories that your ancestors left you. Because these stories are prophetic, and we have got to have the courage to see prophecy in these stories. Because prophecy is cyclical. Anybody can prophesy the destruction of this earth because it's going to happen again.
Right.
Okay? So when it happens, he was a great prophet. No, he was just reporting what was going to happen anyway.
Right.
Now let's get back. I want to veggie back to the story of Assar being put in a coffer and the coffer being pushed out into the ocean, the slave ship.
Come on, talk to him then.
The 14 pieces of Assar. 13 nations sat down at the Berlin Conference and cut Africa up into 14 pieces of European influence. There were 13 of them who sat down, and there was a 14th hiding behind the curtain. He was just an observer. But now he's got bases all over the continent. And you talk about the population explosion among Africans. They're trying to dampen that by trying to push the agenda on African people, on African culture, that does not cause a proliferation of life. They're being encouraged to develop and to put their reproductive power into doo-doo, okay, which is not proliferating life.
I was like, caught me off guard for a second.
I know, but don't worry, the folks will catch it.
They ain't catch
it. Now let's get back. Let's get back to the coffer being pushed out to sea and caught up on the island of Byblos. The coffer contains the body of Assar. Assar is the principle of resurrection. Okay, and that's why Assar goes to the west, because the west is the zone of a western sunrise that we're experiencing now because of the age of Hapi, the age of what they call Aquarius, that we are now discovering. We are finding our Henanum again. If you know that that book, Sacred Woman, there was some tragedy involved with that book, because while the book was being the world has to know the input of a male in helping our women to resurrect. But that's been one of my primary desires. I grew up with 3 elder sisters and 7 aunts. And I witnessed conflict among the women. And so when I came together with Queen and saw that most of her work was helping the women to resurrect, women who could not get pregnant because their tubes were clogged with mucus based upon this starch diet, the flesh diet, and all the acidity, the fibroid tumors that we're getting because the men's sperm had become so acidic, which it should be alkaline, that they were eroding the women's capacity to bring forth life. And she helped them by helping them to change their diet, to have more chlorophyll in their system, that they were able to have babies again, okay? And that was something. However, the conflict still persisted among women, and that was one of the main things, because our women do not see themselves as divine, because the systems that they, even though all of the religions claim to honor the divine woman, sometimes it does not materialize across the board in practice. And as a result, our women are shortchanged in terms of knowledge of their power. So when we went to Random House to negotiate the advance for the book Sacred Women, the editor said to me, to us, the Queen and myself, we want this to be a Kemetic book. I almost fell out. What? This woman had been, and I need to mention the Assar and Set Society, which contributed to...
You said a committed book?
Kemetic. Kemetic. From Chem. Kemetic. K-M-T-K. That's how we spell Kemetic. They spell it K-H-E-M-E-T-I-C, Kemetic.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but we spell it K-M-T-K. Which means that she wanted this ancient Kemetic culture to be saturated in the book. And that's the reason why the gateways through women, the gateways of initiation through women, which women would walk through in rediscovering their power as women and their healing power specifically as women, were all the female neteru. Because in our legacy, the divine principles are always balanced. So you have in the gateways, you have Ask, you have Nut, you have Ma'at, you have Nebet, you have Ta'urt, all of these feminine energies which represent principles and functions of the divine feminine. these women learn once again how to discover their power and these indwelling forces within themselves that they can bring out to repair the damage that has been done to them. And so when Random House was, the book was being written, Random House was sold to the Germans in Germany. When the Germans found out how much Kemetic culture was impregnating the book, they fired everyone who had anything to do with the book, including the editor. And they tried to bury the book because there was a big budget being put aside to bring this book, to make it a force in our community, in the world. But they stripped every bit, every penny that they could from the book. But the book still came out and it became a bestseller because it was ordained, divinely ordained. Okay? And my name, because the last day when the book was being compiled and finished, the editor is sitting on the floor with Queen at the editor's house, and Queen must have called me about 12 times asking questions about the various energies, the neteretu, the divine feminine principles. The editor said, "Oh, is this how you all work?" She says, "Yes. I wake him in his sleep, and he answers questions and goes back to sleep." She said, "Oh, we have to give him credit in his book. In addition to the passages that he has written," and there were several passages that I did not take credit for, because I want this to be a female book. And I knew that some of the women had so many problems with men in their lives that they did not perhaps even want a man to be involved in their resurrection. So I took a sort of a back seat. But the woman put my name under the publisher's page as a historical advisor and research consultant for the book Sacred Women. I took Queen to the shrine of Sekhmet, the shrine of the healers, in the temple of Amun-Ra at Karnak, and took her through an initiation in that temple, in that shrine of Sekhmet. And I, of course, walked through the shrine of Ptah in that same temple, the temple of Amun-Ra at Karnak.
Yeah, I've been through Karnak.
At Ipit Esut, fantastic place.
Yes, I love it.
As a matter of fact, you know who went with me? Who went with us was Chester Higgins. He was a second-generation photographer with the New York Times. Someone that I would suggest you speak to. You have to have a great conversation with him because he wrote the book called Sacred Nile. And he was able to get me into the shrines of Ptah, Sekhmet, and Neferatum, their child, because it was under lockdown. But at the time, because he was Mr. New York Times, they opened up. He also got me into the Great Pyramid, where I went through initiation in the coffer of the King's Chamber. Okay, so I'm not playing with this legacy, my brother. I take it very seriously. So when Ali, Queen's son, called up Random House in 2019 and said that it's time you republish Sacred Women, they say, we don't usually do that. But when they saw that the brother who was killed out in California, Nipsey Hussle, that his lady, Lauren London, she was with him on a television program.
Right. Yeah,
and she asked him, what was the latest book I read? He couldn't remember the name of the book, but he remembered Queen Afua. So that is how the book then began. It sold more in 3 years than it did in the previous 17.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay, because now women associated it with something that they could sign on to because they heard of it on TV, literally. So now, when Ali called up to get the book republished for its 20th year anniversary, the editor, who I believe is a feminist, took my name from the front, from the publisher's page where it had been for 20 years, and hid it somewhere in the back. The Queen did not realize, and I brought it to her attention, so she said the next time she's going to be sure that it's restored. And hopefully the woman will not give her a hard time.
No, they shouldn't. Not if the book is working.
You know?
To sum that up, like I said, that's when I learned that fact, and this is something that I wanted to address in this conversation because how important that is. Right? Like there's misogyny and there's misandry. There's the hatred of women, the hatred of men.
Yes.
Right? Life comes through this ecosystem of balance. everything comes in pairs. The complete opposite exists.
Mm-hmm.
So there are many women who hate men. And you
Yes.
can't truly be a woman. You can't truly heal on your journey if you're holding on to hate, right?
Mhm.
And what we haven't learned to do in our society is heal thyself, right?
Yes.
We get in relationships or people do us wrong or whatever may happen, and we hold on to these grudges and they eat us up inside.
You
They don't
better
hurt
believe.
the person that you're holding on a grudge to, it hurts you, right? And so it's not until we learn how to heal that we can actually move forward. So I love that book, you know, because it teaches women the process of healing, right? And men need to learn the process of healing as well,
That's right.
right? And so that's, of course, they got the book Man Heal Thyself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, understand that we are not at war, but it's also not the most peaceful time right now because
That's true.
the world is going through Reconstruction era, right? And we need to take this era and it has to turn into a renaissance because those who are reconstructing don't usually know what they're building. They just trying things as if the mathematicians and the wise ones before us didn't know what they were doing.
Right.
Yet they built societies, right? They built whole entire mathematics and engineering and agriculture and cultures and things that lasted for thousands upon thousands and thousands of years. Those are people of mighty intelligence. So we have to learn how to respect the foundation of things that were built before us, especially if we plan on building something greater.
A lot of my life I've lived in the gray. Imposter syndrome has been real for me as a producer, a writer, an actor, and a black man in tech. But events like these, seeing 19 Keys, speak about us men being, you know what I mean, at a higher level. Having solidarity with my brothers and being able to collaborate it's helped me to get out of the gray a lot of times because, you know what I mean, like being in depression, anxiety, dealing with childhood traumas. It's been a thing that we've been dealing with for so long, you know, with our women, with our families, in our relationships, with our children. And as a father, as a brother, and as a leader, iron sharpens iron. It's something that we constantly deal with on a monthly basis. So having higher level conversations, having the brotherhood around me and the sisterhood has definitely gotten me out of the gray a lot of times. And just being at this event and even just, you know what I mean, meeting the brother 19 Keys and stuff like that, and just he even passed through our space, you know what I mean, and really encouraged us and how we can just build together and be together more and come together more as one. And I really think that Toronto's going to see change in the men. A lot of women out here saying, no, there's a lot of waste men out here, you know what I mean? But we're changing that, you know what I mean? And we're just even being in this environment. And wearing even all black today is dying to the old self, and it's going to be a renewal in our city. So, yeah, it's time for us all to get out of the gray.
The highest level tour is, you know, it's a moment in history that we get to think about and relish in and be a part of. This is me proving my thought leadership. This is me implementing the ideas and reinvigorating the spirit that we're going to need to win the future right now.
Right? So I wanted to wrap that up. And then last but not least, you know, when we first got here, you got your purple on in very royal establishment, right? And I got my decadent yellow on, looking very golden like a statue
But
of
no,
Ptah.
you got a military energy to it. I like that.
Yes, sir.
FLA, yeah.
Yes, sir. Now, when we got here, you put on the red. Now, you're famously known, right, for having a different color for every day of the week, right? What is this color psychology? Where does this come from, and what does that mean?
Well, in something that we instituted at the Shrine of Ptah, each color represents a divine principle. And these divine principles are expressed through the planetary forces in creation. So on Monday, Moon Day, that's associated with Set because she's known as the lunar principle in our culture. She represents the lunar principle. On Tuesday is her warrior son, Haru. Haru has many aspects, and the warrior aspect of Haru is Haru, conflated with Shango in our legacy in the Yoruba system. On Wednesday, miércoles, we have Mercury. Now on Monday we wear the blue to evoke Set. So automatically when I put the blue on Monday, my mind goes to the Divine Mother principle. And it stays with me, you know, with the color of the day. So it's a meditation and an offering to that divine principle in the way of color. On Tuesday, when I put on my red and white for Haru, it raises my warrior spirit. It reminds me that I should be protective of my vision, because that's the eyes of Haru. You know, what I see, what I behold, and what I put out there for others to behold should likewise be empowering. And the red is a symbol of power also. On Wednesday, miércoles, Mercury is associated with Cehuti, the one that gave us the word thought, because they call Cehuti thought in Greek and Roman. All right? And on that day we wear yellow. Okay?
Come on, I'm a Tahuti leader, thought leader. I got on my yellow.
Hey!
Talk to me.
You see? So
yeah,
again,
Super Haru, come on.
See, that's why if your home netter is Cehuti, the word, because you are constantly dealing with the word, brother.
Yes,
you
sir.
bring other people, you have
Right.
other words coming out, not just your own, too. You're sharing your platform with some beautiful people. So you are in that zone of Cehuti, which reminds me, I got to do something for you with the Cehuti on it.
yeah, let's get it.
Oh yeah, and then on Thursday, the day that's the Thursday is named after Thor, Lord of the Hammer. The hammer is an instrument of Ptah. Ptah wears purple because the priests of Ptah wore purple. That was a dye they used to get out of one of the shellfishes in the Mediterranean. It was the same purple dye that Cleopatra used for her sails in her yacht. Okay.
So, not to cut your wisdom, but Thor, where does that story come from? Because now we see Thor as the big muscular, you feel me, in the Marvel movies.
Yes.
But as far as where's the true origin from the Thor and the hammer?
Well, again, you will have to go back to that aspect of Ptah, because Ptah uses the hammer to build with, to chisel with. Okay, so Ptah was conflated as Thor in the other. I forgot. You can look it up. It was, I forgot what culture produced Thor.
Nordic.
Nordic. It's a Nordic culture. Yeah, no doubt. You know, but they're borrowed again. And on Friday we is Oshun or Het Heru. Het Heru, the house of Heru. By the way, I'm sitting at the desk of the divine keeper of the shrine of Het Heru. Her name is Kaitha Het Heru, and I want our brother to see a picture of her right on the door there.
We're going to get all the B-roll.
Yes. She's protected by the lioness behind the door there. You see, behind the door, you see the lioness?
Yeah.
Okay. Right in the middle is Kaitha Het Heru. She's the keeper of the shrine of Het Heru. The second shrine, after the shrine of Ptah was established in New York City, the second shrine that came into being was the shrine of Het Heru. And she was the one that I just come off the stage at City College where I was giving a lecture about the various symbols of Kemetic. And she approached me, and this woman's eyes dazzled me. I said, oh my gosh, I'm in the presence of divinity. And she said, I weave. And I was told that I should meet you because you and I both dress funny. This brother said we both dress funny. You know, we're dressing a lot of different African symbols.
Yeah.
And she said, so later on she called me and she said, can I bring down one of my small weave shuttles? I said, by all means. She brought it down, set it up, and she began to weave inside the shrine. This was I was on the Bowery at the time, and I was there for 23 years in that location. And then later on, she said, can I bring a bigger loom? I said, well, we have more space now. So yes, she brought a bigger loom, and she was weaving Kemet cloth. And later she started to do kiln work, where she brought forth various implements in clay.
Yeah.
You know, and Friday's the day of Het Heru. Now on Saturday, Set gets his turn.
What was the color for Friday?
Friday's green, yellow, or turquoise.
Okay.
Right, that's the color for Friday.
All right, Saturday.
And Saturday is red and black or indigo. Okay, that's for Saturn. Friday is for Frida, for Venus. And Venus is equated with Het Heru, the planet of divine love. that's associated with love, and Het Heru is love itself. She's the one who receives the bodies of women at the western gate in their departure, because she is the lady of the sycamore tree. You were speaking about the tree of life.
Yes, sir.
To us, the sycamore represents the tree of life. Every year in the land of Kush, Ethiopia, they celebrate the Erecha festival, where the indigenous people who still practice the ancient ways. I should say that the government a few years ago slaughtered several of them because they were considered to be pagan and heathen. Okay. However, it's been restored now where they can celebrate the Erecha festival, and they go to the Nile, and there's a sycamore tree, and they pour honey around the root of that tree, and it's led by a woman, again symbolizing the principle of Het Heru. So even though may have forgotten the origin of that, we are able, because of our legacy, to trace exactly what's happening, because the sycamore is known to be sacred to Het Heru. Okay, and on Saturday, of course, Set get his turn, because Set is the other side of Heru. Set and Heru, they combat, but their struggle strengthens both of them. You need both gravity, Set, and you need levity, the capacity to rise from your Set condition. Okay, some say it's the upper and lower nature of humanity, but they both have to come to the heart and unify, because there's a greater evil. The evil is known as apap, known as apophis in the Greek vernacular. And apap is the one who drinks up all the waters of wisdom. Apap is the dragon of the deep. Apap is the evil that's crystallized in a culture.
Crystallized evil.
Yes. So therefore, Set and Heru come together in order to both attack Apap. And if you visit the temple of Heru at Edfu, that story is told on the outside of the temple, where you see Heru and Set, both with spears, putting spears into the body of this reptile.
So that's like your lower and higher self fighting, right?
Because
that's the balance in the human being versus, it's like, you have Christ consciousness. I talked about this with the good brother Joey, but that's crystallizing that mind of God. So with the Ptah.
Oh, Apap.
Apap.
Yeah, Apap,
right? So
yes.
the Apap is crystallized evil versus, crystallized consciousness or Christ consciousness.
Precisely.
Which is very powerful. So it's like when you, and everybody doesn't have that ability, but when you can crystallize that light in your mind and you can operate at your highest level at all times, right? With that mind of God, that's that Christ consciousness,
You better
right?
believe, yes.
But then when you are completely taken over, right? And, your lower nature, you going even below that, right? And that's crystallized evil. That's the battle between the worlds that we deal with today.
You better
it's
believe.
Between Christ consciousness, crystallized God consciousness, and crystallized devil consciousness. That's the war.
And many of us are the victims and the practitioners of those, because we must own what some of us have done.
Right.
Some of us have joined the forces of evil, and due to ignorance. And that's the reason why information such as this is so important.
Right.
Because our women will now bring forth children into the world already. Because what goes into their consciousness goes directly to the womb if they're carrying life. It goes to their egg even before life enters there. That's the reason why women historically seek out men that have knowledge. And unfortunately, many men with knowledge take advantage of women because of their knowledge, because they know that women are attracted to knowledge. In the same way that women are, the female lioness is attracted to the lion that wins the battle between the old lion and the young lion. Because why? It has nothing to do with her emotions. It has everything to do with what she wants to bring forth.
Well, I didn't mean
she wants she wants a strong seed to bring forth a strong warrior baby. You see?
Now, many people would say, well, more women are attracted to ignorance, because a lot of women say that they want a real nigga. They ain't saying they want no smart man.
Well, because unfortunately, we have bought into the idea that being a gangster is the way to go. We have been turned around, and why is it with all of these religions that are supposed to inspire us to our higher self? Why is it we have chosen to manifest that lower nature? Why is it? Because we do not have the foundation of the original system. We are depending upon those that came after. And if you don't have the original, you are sometimes going to have the weaker expression of the original. So
That's a
that,
fact.
okay, so that's the reason why I'm saying to all our brothers and sisters in all of the religions, find the original story, find the oldest system, and be faithful to that. Include it in your teachings. I say to all the religions, all of you need to study MAAT. All of you need to embrace this divine principle of balance, of order, reciprocity, sobriety, propriety, and harmony. Because right now, the religions have been at the forefront of wars and killing. It's been misused. So therefore, that's why spirituality is now on the ascendant, because we have seen the damage that those who are purportedly practicing faithful religion have fallen into the trap of being warriors and killers and murderers and rapists and thieves and child molesters. And this has got to stop. And it's going to stop whether we like it or not.
That's a
Because
fact.
this age demands it. And that's the reason why I insist on supporting the ascension of our cosmic origin. And that's the reason why I join you, my brother, and thank you
Yes,
for
sir.
your crowd.
Man, I appreciate you.
Thank you for this crowd.
Yes, sir.
And I know you're going to make me a purple one for Pata.
Yes, sir. I have one for you already.
That's wonderful. So,
Did we finish Sunday?
oh, Sunday is Ra. Sunday is also Ra Heru. That's orange, gold, and or yellow. We wear on Sunday, representing the sun. Why is it called Sunday? Why is Yeshua always pictured with this halo of the sun behind his head? Because try and deny it all you want, the sun is at the center of our reality. Every morning it's there. And we don't have to wait for it no amount of years, because it's there every day.
It's the most distant, yet the most powerful and the most necessary.
And present.
If more, you know, you asked me about, you said I take planes like taxis. Yes, I am always on a plane.
Yes, you are.
But when I study in my book many years ago, I think not many, not like how y'all book is, you feel me? But it's wrote about 3 years now almost. And I talked about sun gazing. Sun gazing in the morning, right? At low radiation times resets your circadian rhythm. So if you travel and you wake up early in that time sphere and you sun gaze, it'll reset your body, right, to that time sphere biologically to wherever you at, right? So the sun, right, without getting sun, we can become depressed, right? We're deprived of those vitamins. So the sun is there for us. We eat food to get the sun, right? So, you know, whether you like it or not, right? Sunday is always a venerated day, right? In all religions. Because guess what? We can't live without the sun. And when you learn how to live with the sun, then you learn how to get the medicines from the sun, right? You can unlock that pineal gland, right? That third eye, right? The ancient Egyptians were very big on that pineal gland and that third eye. They drank gold or ate gold ormus, if you will.
People focus a lot on nutrition, body-wise. You know, I'm going to feed this particular system of the body. I'm going to feed that system. Very rarely do people speak about the mind. Very rarely do people speak about the brain. The brain needs the most energy, right? The brain is needed to process. The brain is needed to, you know, compartmentalize. The brain is needed for so many things, you know, but we don't know what brain food looks like, you know. We know that the body's electrical, and what I understand about gold is not only is it superconductive, but it's non-corrosive and it's a noble element. So they say that if I am what I eat, I want to be noble. You know what I'm saying? I want to be of the highest degree. And I also want to focus on mental health. I want to focus on gut health. I want to focus on energy. I want to focus on youth. I want to focus on, accessing pineal activity, hormonal balance. Everything the goal represents is what I want to see more of. So what better thing to do but align myself with this particular product and get it out to as many people as I can by singing the praise of gold, which is something that our people have been doing for over 10,000 years.
And they knew the power of the sun. They were in the sun, they were outside. And we have a world of artificial lights, artificial bodies, artificial, ingredients. We take drugs and put us in artificial moods. Everything is artificial, right? We trying to get a light source, right, from everything else in this matrix besides walking outside and take your butt in the sun. You understand me? So like that's the most powerful thing that we can do, right? Open air therapy, right? Being outside. You calling about you depressed and you inside all day. Yes, you're depressed because you're suppressed. You have to go outside and allow your biology to express, right? To download information, to download light and sun energy, then watch how you feel. You take those that's in the hood, put them into nature, watch how it changes the rhythm of their thinking. I promise you there is nobody who can think the same if they're constantly in the rhythm of nature and the same the way they're in the city, right? It's your environment that is destroying you. So even like you talked about, if we get the right religion but in the wrong environment, then we're going against the very nature of what we're being programmed to adhere to.
That's right.
Right? And so that's why I like the idea of, yes, Ankhs everywhere. Why not? Star and crescents everywhere. Why not? Because this is the combatant of the Petet, right? Versus the Christ consciousness. So you have to put symbols that are in representation of that Christ consciousness to help you crystallize, because your lower and higher is always fighting. And they trying to get you crystallized on evil to sell yourself. And we trying to get you crystallized on that consciousness so that you can avail yourself.
That's why when you say pa 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 pa, it takes you directly to Rome. Because in the basement of the Vatican is where so many of the secrets that have been plagiarized, that have entered into the books that they have codified at the Nicene Conference has been hidden.
Yeah, they stole everything, man.
There's so much of our story.
I'm going to have the Pope on here next. I'm going to talk to him about that.
Talk about crystallized evil.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, listen, brother. First of all, I want to thank you. This is a full circle,
Give thanks.
This is a very powerful moment. We are in your shop with all this beautiful jewelry that people will be able to see. Joyerie.
Yes, indeed.
That people will be able to see. And you're here in New York. And if anybody wants to come and they want to see all the beautiful pictures, I get all of my rings made here. You can't get them unless, it's not authorized for everybody, right? So you got to go through the brother in order to get it.
Well, I would say this. The carrying Ankh is not authorized for everyone. You have to go through a certain level of initiation, or you have to be an elder who has served the community most of your life. That's how you get one of these keys. I used to give these keys at the African Arts Festival every year to an elder woman and an elder man. Other younger people, they go through learning about the knowledge, learning about MAAT, learning the legacy of Assar and Haru, and we ask them, who's your father? Assar. Who's your mother? Set. Who are you? Haru. What is your task? What's your purpose? To serouge MAAT, to restore MAAT. Restore MAAT in yourself, bringing your acid and alkaline into balance, okay? Restoring relationship with your female partner or your male partner. This is restoring the balance in how you treat each other on the corners of the street, in your homes, respecting your daughters and not molesting your daughters or your sons, okay, which is out of MAAT, all right? And truly following a righteous and a healthy lifestyle. Taking more of the sun inside of you, because chlorophyll is the melanin of the plant. All right, so as we take more of that into us, as we suck on a gold nugget, and get the gold that you likewise have produced, that product that you've produced is very key in restoring our balance. And for you brothers and sisters out there, we spoke about the Sacred Woman book, but preceding that, there was the book known as Heal Thyself for Health and Longevity. And I wrote a chapter in that book too, written by Queen Afua. It's called the Mesu Heru, where I showed why our ancestors preserved the organs and put them in special jars. They preserved the lungs in a certain jar. They preserved the small intestines in another jar. They preserved the liver in another jar and the stomach and large intestine in another jar. There were 4 jars known as the Mesu Heru, the children of Heru. If you feed these children, they will make you a strong hero or Herut, because Herut is the feminine aspect of Heru. All right? And in that book is that chapter, which many gloss over because they equate it, well, this is Egyptian stuff, this is scary. But no, it's a healing thing. And the whole of the book, Sacred Woman, is foundation on restoring the power of the divine feminine so that she can give birth to divine masculine powers.
Talk to him.
Regardless of their religion.
Talk to him.
And that's why women from all walks of life, Rasta women, Christian women, Muslim women, they all have come into Sacred Woman, and they have learned so much of their power to heal themselves and their power. And it encourages, because I wrote a chapter in the book, a portion of the book showing men how to relate to a sacred woman. Once she cleanses her body, you cannot enter into her with an unclean organ. You cannot go in the back door and then think you're going to go into the front door. That is forbidden. You are killing our women with your henanum. Please, you must stop, my brothers. No matter how much she twerks, deal with the front door. Leave the back door for her to sit on, okay?
Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hey, well, listen, man, you heard it here first. You understand me? We have had a beautiful conversation.
Give on some praise.
I believe that there's a lot to take from this conversation, specifically in understanding why it's important to understand the roots of things, why it's important to understand the symbols, the true terms, to study, to read, to know thyself so that you can heal thyself. When you commit yourself to any practice in the world, right, to go into that practice of becoming a master, then you take on the divine principles of what made a master. Right, and what makes a master is learning the principles of development, learning the process, because that's where you learn the true principles. That's where you learn your nature. That's where you learn yourself. We live in a world that's not customized for who we are, right? So therefore, there can be a child that is born with the unique DNA of both his parents, right? But that child has to go through the same schooling and development as everybody else. And so society doesn't treat us as if we're unique. Society gives us social security numbers and birth certificates, and we are used, right, just as a workforce. You're not used to bring out your God force, right? You're not going to school to learn yourself, right? But if you study to learn yourself, then you can manifest the greatest version of yourself. Indeed. You can operate at your strengths versus your weaknesses, and that's where we start to get our power. Right, so we are very unique people on this planet Earth, and we have to learn the principles of mastering who we are, so therefore we can become our true selves, right, our highest level. So I want to thank the good brother Baba Haru for teaching us how to be super Harus, to learn our powers and our principles, and learning some of that Kemetic wisdom and consciousness, because too many people are living in that evil crystallization or going towards that. And you have to learn to win the battle of the lower and the higher, so that you can always be at your highest level. I'm 19 Keys, and this has been your high level conversation.
Oh, give on some praise.
I'm 19 Keys, and this is high level conversation. Tap in with the gods.
I wanted to give thanks to Sakara for all that she's done to help make this moment possible. I also want to let our people know that wedding bands and engagement rings are part of my specialty here. That they can get married with symbols of their legacy, symbols that remind them of their purpose to unify and to stick as much as possible together, and to restore the divine balance of Ma'at in all our lives.
You know what? That's dope. I never thought about that. Like a wedding ring, the only symbol it is a diamond, which is a symbol of capitalism.
True.
Right? And so when you think about it, then a man just gets a band, which really doesn't mean much at all. Right? But the woman gets the ring because we were sold that. You feel me? A diamond is a woman's best friend.
True.
But that shape of a diamond, that symbol has no registry of consciousness within it whatsoever. And this is supposed to be the very sacred ritual thing that is supposed to bind you all when you think about your love. And that's just a diamond, which is more so a representation of capitalism. It has nothing to do with the structure and union of unification and love. Now, you can put the diamonds in. I'm not saying that.
Oh, yes.
But I'm saying with the diamond being the center, right? Then that means that that's the symbol of your love, the diamond.
True. But we use different stones. Many people are using different stones today. The diamond, don't forget, is carbon crystallized by the pressure in the earth, by the impact of the various heavenly bodies on the earth. That is what makes carbon shiny, okay? Just like silver. People don't know that silver is really black, okay? You won't find that out until you take a polishing cloth and you just mark it on silver. You think that's dirt. No, that is pure, the crystallization of carbon in the silver, okay? And so that is one of the things. I also have access to non-conflict stones of all different makes, of rubies, corundums, the various corundums like blue sapphire, green sapphire. All of those are hard stones. A diamond is number 10 in hardness. It is as tough as steel. Okay, they use diamonds in our watches. Diamonds are used for radios. Okay, it has an electromagnetic purpose also. So people get what they want. I don't insist that they get diamonds. And many people come here and they get their engagement rings. Some wear the birthstone of their husbands, and sometimes the husbands have the birthstone of the wife put in their rings. We try to put symbols that have meaning, that brings the couple closer together. There's a Dinka symbol called Miwari Wo. It means I will marry you. And that's a beautiful sign for an engagement ring, regardless of whatever stone you want to put in it.
Right.
You know? So I just wanted to say that.
It's a great time that I believe to invest in gold.
Oh, yes.
So, you know, just talk about just jewelry being an investment, right? Because you're buying precious metals, right? And precious metals are going to be going up, especially when we talk about the currency wars. So you're walking like what you have in your silver and you have your gold, right? You're walking around with currency. Real money is what it was called. God's money is gold. You know what I'm saying? So if you can just, speak on that a little bit about, gold and silver and precious metals, right? Being an investment.
Yes, I invite our brothers and sisters to consider gold, and many of them will come with, well, it's so expensive. I says, well, your money is in the bank sitting, not gathering interest, but you can have your money, you can keep it in your home if you want to, if you're afraid to wear it, or you can wear it under your garments, but you can feel the comfort of having something that is convertible into preserving your life if you got into a tight spot, okay? Because it's only going to appreciate. I remember when I first started, gold was selling for $35 an ounce. That was the official price. And now it's up to $1,900, approaching $2,000 an ounce, okay? So it's as safe a commodity as anything else that appreciates in value. So gold and silver, and don't negate the silver. I do a lot of stuff where I mix silver with gold. For instance, I made a Olmec head where the face I did in rose gold, so it has a copper color look. And the rest of the crown I put in silver with different stones in it. All right. So I believe in mixing metals likewise. I had to stop doing the copper work because copper, when you heat it, can be very toxic, and it was affecting my bloodstream. So I had to cut down on that. But I still would not say that copper should be totally cast away, because for people who have suffered from arthritis, copper is a good metal to wear, okay, especially at your joints, because it's a metal of Venus. It is a love metal also. So silver is the female of the metal, gold is the masculine of the metal, and sometimes they run together in veins in the earth, where they are complementary. Okay, you have lunar and solar. You see it on the brow of the crowns, right?
Yes, sir.
Gold and silver. So that's a very important thing. So I want to encourage our brothers and sisters, don't be afraid of purchasing gold. If you need to, we'll try to give you a payment plan. All right. And remember, we're not a bank, so we can't go on for a whole year for an item.
You gotta get it done.
Yes, precisely. So I want to thank you for injecting that encouragement to our brothers and sisters.
Yes,
and
sir.
Go to our website. It's studioofpatah.com. And you can friend us on Instagram, Studio Patah, and or Babaheru _creates. All right. And you can I like to still talk to people. People are always shocked when I pick up my phone. Oh, Babaheru, is that you? I said, what do you expect? I have to speak to you, my brothers and sisters. I'm not above you. I'm not trying to be your leader. I'm being led by MAAT. Join me in that walk. And that's what I encourage our brothers and sisters to do. So I want to thank you so much. 19 keys. That 19 is a powerful symbol that you carry. I want to thank you for this opportunity to share some of what I've come to realize with your beautiful audience. Unfortunately, the mind is being affected by what we consume. Literally, we're burning up ourselves with acidity. The brothers on the corner there and in the jails, they're feeding them ground beef filled with poisons that were put into the soil. And that is part of the craziness that we're suffering in the communities that we see. The fast food industry is making people literally crazy, and not just our people, but people in general, because we see the level of obesity. It's affecting the organs of the body, and if it affects your stomach, it's going to have an impact upon your brain, upon the way that you think, upon the way that you respond to your emotional expressions. You're going to go overboard because there's so much heat inside of you that you expend it with your anger, and you kill your brother with a tool given to you by your former masters. You say you got turf, but the cops own the block. You say you're a gangster because you got an Uzi and a Glock. You play basketball all day, you say you rule the sport, but it's really tough being the king when your master owns the court. He'll sign you to a multi-million-dollar contract, but if he lets you play, he'll send his daughter to marry you. She'll bring him back more than half of your pay. If you think I'm lying, meditate on Ye-O-J. Hotep.
In your best understanding, can you explain what the pyramids were built for?
I asked the question on the right side of the brain, and among its many uses, for astronomical purposes, for orientation purposes of this Earth and its trajectory through space and time, the Merkutu were used as chambers of initiation. They were not used as tombs of the pharaohs, as we are told. Okay? But it came to me in a meditation that this Earth had a greater wobble that affected the seasons and the changes of the seasons. And those objects were put there to correct the orbiting cycles of the Earth. And that is the insight that I got from the right brain of my mother, who told me that was part of the reason for, in addition to all its uses, as a purification of water principle, because don't forget, watermarks have been found at the base of the Haru Maquette, of the Sphinx, and of the pyramids likewise. Okay, so this is a part of the legend of why these were built. But they were not only built there in Kemet; they're built throughout this world. There are pyramids all over this earth. Some have been reduced to mounds and mountains now. but they were once placed there because this earth at one time had a dangerous wobble. And because we were in tune with nature in a real way, we were able to make these corrections because of a superior intellect and intuition which we have fallen away from. We think that we have advanced because of these modern accoutrements, but the fact is that a lot of us have gone backward. But now, in this age of Hapi, we are now making that propelling forward. And there are a lot of people who are upset about the opening of this realm of knowledge to all of us because they're calling it woke, which means that they want you to go back to sleep. Don't oblige them. Stay awake and be awakened and pursue wakefulness, because that's what Assar did. If you're a Christian, that's what Christ did. Awaken the light, the Christos, the Karast within you. Awaken that divine spirit because it dwells in every one of us. Hetepu. I would say this before I leave. Amasu enpa impera sauk su ementra impa impera au tuawura maketi pa herura. Give yourself to the divine. Keep yourself daily for the divine, and do it tomorrow just as you do it today. Anachrak nebet nebercher anachrak. Emhetep, Ankh, MAAT.
You know, I have different conversations with people of all walks of life and background. And I never have debates with people, right? Because the point of it is to build. You know, the idea of unification, you understand me, and having unity doesn't mean you have to have complete agreements, right? And I think that's a falsehood. And so I talk to people of all different backgrounds. A brother can be into the Kemetic science. I can be into Islam. A brother can be into Buddhism. Another person could be in Judaism. But we can find common ground. And on that common ground, we can come together, right? And we can create agreements. We can create unification, and we can build. And so not only that is, like I said previously, our ancestors, right? And those who have walked a certain path, those who have, you know, fought to bring knowledges to us and who have experienced things beyond our experience and wisdom, it's important that we document that. It's important that, you know, there's an ancient African proverb that when an elder dies, so does a library, right? And, you know, in Africa, there's so much knowledge that's not being passed down because there's a separation between the older generation and the young generation. So they're not learning the ways and practices, right, that these people have built up for thousands of years, and now it's not being passed down because there's not interest, right? And so we have to make sure that there's a library somewhere where all this wisdom can be taken in, where all this knowledge can be taken in. There's somebody that's going to really gain so much insight and wisdom from it, because everybody has access to knowledge, but we need access to guidance, right? How to use that knowledge properly. And so Baba Haru is a person that I've been getting my jewelry from, and I sit back and he drops some jewels on me at the same time, right? And he's always teaching me about, you know, the Kemetic sciences, right? And I'm always interested in it. I went to Egypt. I was paid to go out there and speak right there in front of the pyramids, right? And so, you know, as this generation becomes more interested in knowledge, I would rather them get it from a source that have actually been through the phases of initiation and the processes of learning versus just getting it purely off TikTok from a teenager, right? So it's nothing wrong with getting information like the news, but you have to make sure it gets it from credible sources as well.
operate in learning how to take your thoughts and form them into reality. That's when you pull things from the darkness and you bring it into light, into reality. That's when you have the power to change the world, and you can bring wealth into generations, into your family. There's power that's going on. Why don't you go grab yourself? There's crowns out there. Why don't you put your on? There's a lot of fear in front of you. Why don't you knock it down and slap the devil and tell him it's your time? What we waiting for? I'm ready to go to the highest level. If you're ready to rock with us, if you're ready to build with us, because we're not waiting on nobody. Once we get on the mission, we in motion and we devote it. We give liberation to our people. Our freedom ain't talking about the identity that's connected to the evils that the agenda gives you. No, we're talking about actually knowing that you God and standing tall and speaking the truth, the power against all odds. They look at me and say, how you a black man? How you walk? How you talk? How you dress? How you move? How you move? Why you know yourself so much? Why you so damn cool? Why you got confidence? Because I decided that I would never live at the lowest level. That's the sun. I decided I would be a God. Every single day I got wake up and I got trained. They don't like when we grow. They don't like when we talk well. They don't like when we talk power. They don't like when we know ourselves. They don't like when we spread the truth. They don't like when we make more leaders. They don't like when we take it from the lowest level to the highest level. That's what we owe. Ha! 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 Ha!
We're going to the highest level. Make sure y'all come with us.
The highest level tour is, it's a moment in history that we get to think about and relish in and be a part of. This is me proving my thought leadership. This is me implementing the ideas and reinvigorating the spirit that we're going to need to win the future right now.